Hello and welcome to the Weekly Scroll podcast brought to you by the Adventure Archive. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Hunter.
And today we are going to be reading the rules light, tension heavy game of battling the cataclysmic apocalypse. Those are words. Arc, created by, I believe she goes by momatoes. Momatoes? Arc, yes. For those that can't see what Hunter is pointing to, he has decided to make his background the cover art. So,
yeah, well, if you couldn't see, you didn't know I was pointing. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly. a little bit for the YouTube, a little bit for the podcast.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're both tired for different reasons. So, yeah, interesting. Bringing back something I said we wanted to talk about, and I'm going to try to remember to do this every episode. Quick first impressions, like 10 words or less. Thoughts on Arc?
I think this is a really interesting concept over maybe mechanics heavy game. Although there are a lot of mechanics, I like the timekeeping aspect of Doom, which we'll go over. And yeah, it's very interesting. I think there's a lot of stuff from here that I like. I think I'd hack it, but yeah, I'm interested. You know, I'd go on a second date.
I'm not so sure. I like the idea, but I feel like there's a bunch of little things that add up to bugging me, partially about the mechanics, the way the mechanics are written, and kind of the vibe of the book in general versus the game that's inside. So we'll get to that as we dig deep into it. But it's been a little while since we had this segment, but we're gonna bring it back for you all. It is a little bit light because we are hitting the Christmas season, but we are going to kickstart the podcast.
Woo!
So to kick it off, we are looking at I believe it's pronounced Vaesen, right? This is a tabletop role-playing game that's been out for a while from Free League, and anyone that knows us and this podcast knows that we stand Free League super hard. They put out Vaesen. They put out the Alien role-playing game. They put out Simba Room, Tales from the Loop, right. A bunch of other amazing games. But they also, because some of those games are in Free League Workshop, so they're games that are released underneath the Free League umbrella, but not necessarily made by Free League. The most popular, which is Merkborg, which is released under Free League Workshop's umbrella, as well as a game that maybe we'll get to once it fully releases, Death in Space, which looks really, really amazing. So Free League, I think I talked to you about it. If I haven't, you have to look at it. It's amazing. It's kind of like... Okay. It reminds me a lot of Mothership with a different twist to it. Really, really cool game. Okay. So we'll get to that. But so this is Vaesen. This is a newest game from... Not newest game. This is an expansion to the current content. Vaesen is a world where it's kind of... we'll read a little bit. It's a Nordic horror role-playing game letting you experience gothic horror mysteries on the lands of Mary Shelley, Arthur Conan Doyle, and Bram Stoker. Bugs me, please use your Oxford commas.
I knew that's what you were fucking say.
Yeah.
Fucking nerd.
Yeah. It's just what makes sense. Written by an industry legend and ENnie winner Graham Davis, who also wrote The Enemy Within, and beautifully illustrated by multiple award-winning artist Johan Egerkrans, the acclaimed cartographer Francesca Berald, and talented portrait artist Anton Vitas. Basically, the game is, it's Nordic horror role-playing game with that, what it just said, kind of turn of the century-ish, like Mary Shelley, Arthur Conan Doyle, Bram Stoker, like Jack the Ripper, kind of quasi-Victorian England era. Okay. Except you're like bumped up against nature, so you fight a bunch of folklore monsters and stuff, is what it comes down to.
I just backed
Interesting.
it.
So what I like about this is this expansion is for Mythic Britain and Ireland. So you actually get Vasins that are based on the folklore from those places, which is really, really neat. So that's why I backed it. But what I did, and what Free League will often do when they put out a new game, I did the same thing with, I am tired and my brain is not working. They put out another game recently with an expansion, Forbidden Lands, right? What they'll often do when they already have a lot of content out is they'll offer the new content plus everything they've put out already.
Right.
So I did that with Forbidden Lands. I bought everything they've ever produced as one pledge. Vaesen is the same way. So you can actually get the Kraken bundle, and it will give you literally everything that they've produced for Vaesen for about $175, which is an insane low amount of money for the content that you get. It's literally, how many different printed books do you actually get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 printed books, a ton of PDFs, dice, a GM screen, a card deck, all the stretch goals, all of that stuff for $175. It's crazy, insane good deal. The only problem with this, one thing that you don't get in here that you can actually get from Free League's website is all of the Foundry modules. But what's good about their store is you can buy all those individually. So if you're actually going to run it, you can buy the Foundry modules, which is cool. So that's Vaesen. It looks wonderful. And I was talking to someone earlier tonight who doesn't know a ton about D&D, but I talk too much about tabletop games, so they know enough now about D&D and stuff. And just about how big D&D has got. And they understand that, but I said that's also realistically, however you feel about D&D now, which if you've read their most recent errata blog, form your own opinion. It is allowed a lot of other, I know I hate everything about it. It is allowed a lot of tabletop games to prosper by proxy, kind of. So it's this giant monolithic structure now that's gone beyond what it should be into this monstrosity, but in its shadow, things were allowed to grow and develop, and things are stepping out of that shadow now. So when you have a game like Vaesen, which, have you ever heard of Vaesen?
No. I mean, yeah. Through you.
Through me. But it backed for $500,000 and still has 4 days to go for just an expansion to an existing game. First of all, that's something to say for Free League, and second about tabletop games in general.
Yeah.
So Ian, hey, how's it going? This game is not quite the game Doom, but it is what it does market itself as the Doom role-playing game. I feel like if Doom had a role-playing game, I would probably like it better, but we'll see how it goes. The cover's beautiful, though. So that's Vaesen. We're going to cruise through this really quickly today to get through the other projects we want to get through. Have we talked about Hell Knight before?
No, I don't think we got to Hell Knight before.
So Hell Knight is a Doom biker RPG rule art book inspired by badass metal covers in the spirit of a strange decade. Basically, it's the 80s kind of slasher VHS lore world, but a bunch of demons have escaped from hell and your job is to hunt them down. It is from Gabriel Quiroga, which you've heard us talk about on this podcast before. He's the same guy that wrote Warpland. So listen to the podcast for our opinions on Warpland. I backed it because regardless of your opinions about the rule set in Warpland, the book itself, the lore in it, the art is fucking beautiful. And this book does kind of...
So unbelievably solid, you know?
Yeah, I wish the rules could keep up. But this also seems just like a fucking awesome lore and art book. And it even portrays itself in the beginning as a rule art book. So I think this one, and it even says in it, like, you can use the rules if you want, but here's just a really cool setting.
Right.
But it looks really badass. I do want to play an 80s biker, like metalhead, hunting demons.
Yeah, that does sound pretty cool.
So it looks amazing.
The music playlist you could put together for a game would be fantastic. So
yeah, exactly. And if this is like the last one, I don't remember if it is, you actually got a soundtrack with the last one for Warpland. So it'd be really cool if they put together. I told you that the kind of like
I do remember you telling me that. Yeah,
primeval synth wave with like tribal drums and shit.
You have me at synthwave.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then there's only one or two save projects I wanted to talk about. One is I've really moved away. Merkborg is still one of my favorite games of all time at this point, but I've moved away from a lot of the third-party content. I've got a lot of it, and I got to say probably about like 50% of it, 60% of it's really good. And then about 40% of it's like, okay, like it's a cool idea. And the art looks like Merkborg's art. The ones that I really like are ones that take the vibe of Merkborg and kind of create something more individual. Like Philip Reed does an amazing job. Chris Eichhorn does an amazing job. Chris Bissett did an amazing job with his book.
That's true.
Yeah. But a lot of them are just feel like, I don't know, redundancies, I guess.
Right.
You know, cool, it's dark. Cool, you use the same art style. This one, though, looks really neat. For those that don't know what like an RPG jam is, it's when you give a theme and people will... Yeah. You take it, cut it up, put it on the toast, eat it, and then the RPG is part of you. So what an RPG jam is, basically you could say like, we're going to do folk, like folk lore, right? And then anyone that wants to participate in the folk jam would submit adventures, monster ideas, items, all sorts of stuff, all related to that folk idea. So this one is the Slasher Zine from Michael Mars. And basically he did a slasher jam, which is based on slasher films, subgenre of horror films. You're talking about like Jason and Mike Myers and all those kind of people. And he did a slasher jam and is basically putting together he took that whole jam and is putting it out as 2 volumes for Merkborg. So it looks really neat. It uses, like I said, a lot of the same concepts and ideas, but it's got a lot of really interesting different concepts in it. Like one of them is like the Voorhees slasher. There's Splatterborg, Hail the Rat God. So it looks really neat. It is a 2-volume set. So I haven't backed it yet, but I might. It still has some time to go. And the PDF is only $5. So I'll probably at least back the PDF because the PDF is $5, but actually getting the 2 physical books is $35. So there's a good chance that I'll probably just back the PDF version of it. But it does look really neat if you like the Merkborg content. Ian, I do not think, since I've read this book almost cover to cover, that ARC stands for anything. I think ARC is just the name of the game, and then Doom Tabletop RPG is because the game is based around the main mechanic in the game is about stopping the apocalypse from happening. So, but it doesn't have anything to do with Doom, the killer shoot 'em up alien game, or ARCs, I guess. So no, but it's neat. It's called ARC Doom Tabletop. This is the limited edition cover. Yes, Drought Merkborg is awesome. The last thing I'm going to talk about this morning on Kickstart the Podcast is a game called Pew Pew.
Pew pew.
Pew pew. A Complicated Profession, a new rules light sci-fi tabletop RPG about bounty hunters in space, and apparently there are other games in the Pew Pew saga. So it is funded. It's got 21 days left as of December 18th. It had $100 goal, so obviously it backed. It's at $1,000 right now. But the pledges are relatively inexpensive. Like the PDF is $5. The PDF and print on demand is only like $7. So even with, they only got $1,000 on 164 backers. So it's because it's extremely inexpensive. So I'll probably end up backing this at probably at least a PDF level too. But long story short, apparently, again, there are other games in the Pew Pew saga. This is a sequel to another game that got backed in 2020. Apparently a sequel to a sequel, but it is a rules light RPG, which, ARC says it's a rules light RPG too. We'll talk about that.
Everyone wants to be these days. Everyone wants to be a rules light RPG.
Yeah, but if you're gonna be rules light, you gotta be rules light.
Yeah, you have to have less rules. You know, you gotta be light on the rules.
Gotta be light on rules. So we'll talk about what that means. But its intent is for lighthearted one-shots about deep-seated emotional turmoil and tortured introspection. So yeah, it looks really neat. I am getting more into the sci-fi genre. We've talked about this. I hate tech in my fantasy worlds. I like grimdark, like shit and blood, mud, like, you know, low magic, low tech settings. Or if I'm going to do sci-fi, I want it to be like cyberpunk, where you literally have computers sticking out of your face and shit. So
I'm writing a space fantasy game right now, and I hope you know I take that personally. So
good. You should take it to heart. Yeah, do better. But Pew Pew looks really cool. It, like I said, it's relatively inexpensive. It's supposedly rules light. So looks fun. And I guess their whole point is that they want it to be like this fun, lighthearted sci-fi game. So Pew Pew looks really interesting. It's exactly how Star Wars spells, you know, when stormtroopers don't hit PEW, PEW. Looks really, really neat. So that is Pew Pew. And that, my friends, is Kickstart the Podcast for today. Not a whole lot going on.
I had nothing. I had literally nothing.
Yeah.
I was just along for the ride for this part of the podcast because I did not back. I just backed what you put up. So I saw him before, but
yeah,
dog's upset about something. Well, you see, dog. Oh, guard dog. You know,
ghosts and shit.
Yeah. Well, it's an old house.
Drow, Eric will be doing Gamma World after we reach our Twitch viewer reward goal. So if you want to see it faster, we are at 67% of the Gamma World one shot. So contribute those channel points and it will get us there faster. Okay, so the next thing we're going to get into Ark. Doom Tabletop RPG. Are you ready for this?
Doom. Yeah. It's not very doomy though, you know?
It's not very doomy. It is interesting. We're gonna get into
awesome background, by the way. I saw that for a second. That was tight.
Oh, my Chainsaw Man background?
Yeah.
New Chainsaw Man info for those that don't know. Part 2 starts in early summer, and the anime will drop probably towards the end of the year next year. Very excited for that. So this is Ark Doom Tabletop from, I believe, so if I remember correctly, and I'm a terrible person for not having this written down, I believe she is Filipina. She does a lot of work with like Southeast Asian tabletop role-playing games, which I think you backed another one recently. That had,
I have a few like Southeast Asian tabletop. They have really cool lore. Yeah.
So it's really cool to see the Southeast Asia getting a lot of good hype in the tabletop community lately. So that's really cool. This cover that's on the PDF is the normal cover. I believe it's one that you have. Yeah. Again, one more time, I will show I think this is called the Scarlet Edition. It's got this beautiful skull with like a third eye on it and stuff. It's so cool. Of course, I had to get this one when I saw it. First of all, it's special edition, but second, I mean, how cool is that cover, period? Yeah. It is published by Exalted Funeral, designed and created by momatoes, Momatoes. Designed, written, illustrated by momatoes. Yep. Partnered with Exalted Funeral. With the incredible support of 2,272 Kickstarter backers. You're welcome. Oh, you know what? Before we dig into this, there's one or two other things that I actually have for Kickstart the Podcast.
Really?
Yeah. Physical rewards.
Oh, you got stuff in the mail? I didn't know we were actually supposed to get the stuff we backed on Kickstarter.
Sometimes you do, which is crazy. But you know what I got? Speaking of the Merkborg stuff we talked about earlier, we finally got ourselves Merkborg Heretic.
Very cool.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes. Maybe at some point we should literally do a whole episode of just like content like this, like cool third-party content, like the official content, like Ferritory, Heretic. But it's beautiful, just like you would expect from from Merkborg. It's a lot of content that I've already seen because, much like Ferritory, this is kind of just another zine of Merkborg cult stuff for the most part. But it does have some really awesome foldouts in it. It does come with this awesome, like, insanely drawn dungeon poster, which is really, really, really cool. For those that can't see it, check it out on the pods. But it's
wow, it's
super
really
neat.
cool.
Yeah, a lot of yellow and pink and very Merkborgy. It's got a cool, like, just black and white graphic on the back of a monster with its wings wide open. And then it also comes with this thing called Icon, which is basically... I don't know. I have to dig through it a little farther. I do know that it was misprinted, and I think they're sending out reprints. It's these 4 booklets of these 4 basically profane, like, evil gods or dark gods, and you roll on them and stuff happens. But I think that number 10 is the front cover, and I do believe it's supposed to be not that. So I think they were put together wrong. I think this back cover is actually inside out. If I remember correctly.
I'd be so annoyed.
Yeah, so I think what I heard was that they're going to be re-releasing those. But I do need to dig a little deeper into it because it's really, really neat. But it doesn't make sense if you just open it up, and especially if it's misprinted. So that's really cool. One thing I don't know if you noticed, the heretic on the front, the flames.
Oh, cool. Yeah, those are really cool.
They're in like a foil on the front. So I still wish, even a zine this not smallish, they had put not kind of like stapled in the middle and fold over, but actually gave like an edge to. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then the other... Oh, and it also came with a beautiful GM screen. It's a shorty but a fatty. It's not very tall, but it is thick with 3 C's.
That's how I like them.
Yeah. But it's got beautiful art. All of the art is basically these pictures in these gold frames that are amazing.
So cool. That is so brutally cool.
Yeah. And then the inside is really neat. It's got a lot of info. It's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, but on the front and back one, it's actually doubled up because there is like a page that you can actually take out.
Oh.
And it's actually double-sided, so you have entire, like, basically 4 more pages front and back of content in the GM screen, which is cool. And sticking with Merkborg, the other one I got is probably the coolest third-party Merkborg content I've ever got. It is from Max Moon, and it is Abyss of Hallucinations.
Oh,
so,
dude, what the fuck? That's awesome.
Yeah. And you gotta check out the VOD or go to his Kickstarter page for Abyss of Hallucinations. He is the same guy that did 12 Years and some other really, really cool content too. Gotcha. That's a game that I would really like to go over at some point. But it's also the art inside. I don't know. I followed this guy on Instagram before he worked with Max Moon for this. But if you actually look at the illustrations inside, they are...
Man, I can't get over that fucking cover, dude. That cover's fucking sick.
Dude, like the inside, all of it is. So
for those of you listening, the cover is fucking like a very light pink with just gold like imagery on it.
But what you can't see and what you can't feel is this is screen printed on in a really crazy way, because this is the actual cover of the book with the color on the back. So if you see this front,
about how cool that is. Fuck, that's so cool.
It feels like almost like a film printed on over it.
God,
and it's got multiple levels of it.
Can I buy that?
I mean, maybe he's got a couple more, but I genuinely can't, like, I will not be able to take a picture of this that's going to do justice for me to send it to you for how cool this is printed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. So definitely check that out. The illustrations are from Andy Weber. And it's hard to even describe. Basically, it is kind of a setting-ish Um, but yeah, yeah, it's awesome. And not only that, it also comes with character sheets, which is cool. It comes with a color map, which is beautiful. And if you backed at a high enough level, to give you kind of more of a vibe on what the book is like, he actually printed the Book of Lies from Aleister Crowley in the same style.
Oh, so cool. Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. But Max Moon does a lot of amazing stuff. Definitely just Google Max Moon games. You'll find a lot of stuff. I highly recommend checking out 12 Years. But it's just, again, like, I don't even want to dig too deep into this without actually like maybe going over this on the stream sometime. And
yeah, we should really do like a third-party Morkborg day. Because there's just like we can make it like a 6-hour episode.
We could, you know? We could, with all the stuff that I have, especially. But we could also just do like a Max Moon day too, because he's got a bunch of games that I have backed. At least, I believe there's at least 1 or 2 more after 12 years, plus this. So anyway, that is content that actually showed up, and now that is officially the end of
physical content.
Kickstart the Podcast. It's nice to actually get rewards, you know, for your investments. It's really neat.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna get into Tenfold Dungeons. So heading back into Ark, Doom Tabletop RPG.
That's how you're supposed to pronounce it. So,
yeah,
it's Ark
exactly.
Doom.
Doom. So one thing that is great about this book right off the bat, it is in fact hyperlinked, which just I do love me a nice hyperlinked PDF. There are a number of chapters. There's an intro chapter. There's chapter 1, which is kind of setting up the game and everything. There's chapter 2, which is hero creation. There's chapter 3, which is the core rules. There's chapter 4, which is spells and techniques. There's chapter 5, which is a guide toolkit. And then there's an appendices, which is really nice. In the appendices, it's all samples. So it's samples of creating the heroes, which are basically your adventures, samples of scenes and skill checks, samples of conflict, samples of dooms. So that's a really, really, really cool thing to add. I know that we've talked multiple times about having games that people write the way that they think, but it might not be the way everyone thinks. So when you give an example of actually playing the game, you can go, yes, like Into the Odd did a really good job with that. So
this is like a lot of very usable sample stuff. Like, it really is nice. It's also nice to have it because we often see it scattered throughout the book, and I enjoy that. But it's nice to be like, oh no, like I really want to have like a block of just like stuff that I can go and refer to, and it's like, yeah, it's just in the back of the book. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's really good. And not only that, to go along with the table of contents and it being hyperlinked, it has an index too, like a glossary of terms. So you can actually go search damage and it will tell you the pages to go find damage rules and stuff on. So they did a pretty dang good job with giving you the resources you need to navigate the PDF, which is wonderful.
Book.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I wish that they did, which Troika does, is, hyperlink back to those places and things like that. And I do think there are times in the book where it tells you to reference another section, but that section is not clickable. So they did a good job, but it's definitely not Troika, I'll tell you that. So we're probably going to skip through most of the introduction, and we'll probably skip over the appendices unless we have a lot of time left at the end, and just get right into the game, because the intro is like 14 pages long, but we can hit it a little bit, just to like, what is Ark? So off the bat too, I mean, how good is the art in this?
Yeah, it is a very nice art book. So
it's a lot of digital art, and I don't even know, when you look at this page, how to describe this except to say like modern graphic design.
Yeah, I guess something like that. Yeah. So I was listening to an interview with momatoes, and apparently this is like all like a lot of this artwork is just art that she's made over the years, that she just is like, yeah, I'm just going to use all the art that I've made over the years.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I do think though that like the layout style of it I can't, if you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I also feel like there's kind of like, and I don't mean this in a negative way, like how someone who tries like 10 times too hard would write a resume with like some of the fonts and stuff. Like it's this very like, do you know what I mean?
Look how fancy I can make this. I got 8 different fonts in this bitch, you know?
But it's a lot of fonts. It's a lot of different colors. So just in the beginning, it says Ark is a rules light, tension heavy fantasy tabletop role playing game where anyone can create urgent stories ticking down to a seemingly inescapable apocalypse. That sounds awesome right off the bat.
Yeah.
But within, and not a but, like within that one line, there are 4 different fonts, 4 different colors, and we got caps, lowercases all over the place. It's very graphically designed. It's
right.
I don't think it's over designed. I don't think this book is over engineered.
Yeah. I think they do it. I think it does it well. Like, yeah, are there a lot of fonts? Absolutely. Although I will say that typically I'm not the person who's, I mean, I am annoyed when they use a lot of fonts poorly, but I'm not annoyed when people use a lot of fonts if it's good. And I think I like this, the way they use it. You know, they delineate things using different fonts and colors. You know, urgent story feels urgent. It's got like a yellow background. It's got some blocky lettering. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that at all. Again, that wasn't trying to have like a but at the end or anything like that. I think it's beautifully, I think the layout is beautifully done. My question as we continue this game is, do I feel that the color scheme and artistic layout of this book fit the rules and the game that's actually written within the book?
I gotcha.
You understand what I'm saying? When we get into sections talking about blood and guts and doom and the apocalypse, and it's a very nice... I did
kind of feel that. The art's very whimsical and lighthearted, and then it's like, this is the end of the fucking world. And I'm like, that's weird. This is a lot more cheery and beautiful than I would assume like the end of the world is.
This is so cheery and beautiful.
It's so cheery and beautiful.
I personally don't, as of right now, we'll get into it deeper. I do not think that the art style and layout of the entire book fits the game that's within the book. I think it feels very kind of disjointed to me.
Yeah, I would agree. It is really pretty. It is unbelievably pretty artwork, you know?
Right. But the base kind of color scheme for the whole book is this like dark green, light green, yellow kind of thing. Some of the pages later have kind of a better color scheme, even with the same layout, the same fonts, the same everything. If they had switched that color scheme to more like blacks, oranges, yellows, reds, a lot of reds and like dark, I think it would be a completely different vibe. But the fact that it's all of these colors are very calming.
Yeah,
very like
it's very
cute,
lovely,
whimsy,
you know?
Yeah, lovely. And now, it's like roll for your blood and gut score, like to stop the doom. Like, there's a disconnect.
Damn.
But yeah, why play Ark? Escape to a world filled with memorable, heart-racing tales. Build a story, have fun. So again, we're gonna skip through a lot of this intro part because it's a lot of like, what do you need to play Ark? Dice and people. That's about what you need. The guide is the person who runs the game. And you play Ark by using the rules that we'll get to later. And that's about it. I do like the Doomsday Clock concept, so we will hit that.
And real quick, you know, Ryan and I will always joke about like those introductory sections. But like if you haven't ever done this before and this is the game that you pick up somehow, it's really great that section's there. But you know, after what book number are we on? I think we're at our 8th game that we're going through or something. It's just like, we're not gonna. It's in every book. It
should be. It should be. It doesn't always have to be.
Should be.
In smaller zines and stuff like that. That like the intent of the author is for it to be people that have played other games. Right. I totally get it. But this book is clearly written, not for people that have never played before necessarily, but with that caveat in mind that if no one has ever played the game before, the first introduction chapter is a really great chapter to have. Like Casket Land, for example, would have benefited a lot from an introductory chapter, because that was written with what felt like written with the mindset that people have already played Apocalypse World or something, and are familiar with the rules.
That could have done with somebody solidifying the rules they added in and making sure they were all explained in the book.
Exactly. So yes, as he just said, it's not, we're skipping through it because you can read it. We don't have to read it to you. That you're playing a game because you want to. We'll explain what that game is as we go through the rules. There are a lot of really cool, cute quotes and stuff, and like roll tables that have some stuff, because there's no setting really to this. You can kind of make up whatever setting you want. Yeah, but there's a lot of little bits and pieces that give you like a little bit of inspiration. It's too late, the princess whispered, voice cracking. The three held each other tightly as if they could keep the cold away with what little heat they had. They'd failed to stop the doom. Now the world would suffer with their mistake. And it's underneath this beautiful piece of art. So, the Doom is a cataclysmic event threatening to devastate the world of the heroes or their people. In Arc, the hero's goal is preventing this apocalypse. So literally, the basis for this entire game is that there is a countdown clock, and you as heroes are trying to stop literally the apocalypse from destroying your world, whatever that apocalypse might be. That is the base concept of the entire game. Love it. Right off the bat, I'm like, fuck yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Merkborg, except Merkborg, you're not stopping it. You're just living through it. But
kind of. Yeah, I mean, even Merkborg has the miseries that you rolled, and once you hit 7 of those, the world literally ends. So yes, this is kind of like a whimsical Merkborg.
Okay. I'll do the next section. The doom is determined by the guide and the players. It can be large in scope, for example, a world-sundering earthquake triggered by a goddess's death, or more intimate, the departure of beloved spirits, a cruel heartbreak, or a farewell of an era. So, like the doom is can either be like a worldwide cataclysmic or be something a lot more like local to your characters, which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, and even within that, as we get farther into the rules, you'll see that there are ways to play beyond that. There's interesting concepts like rewinding to an earlier point in the adventure with consequences, or having another adventure after the cataclysmic event, because maybe there's another one, or you're trying to figure out, what to do now. So it's really interesting. So setting up the apocalypse, the guide, who's basically the GM, any idea you have for the story and its doom may be refined further with the player's help. So basically this is basically like talking through potentially like a 0 session. What kind of setting resonates or intrigues you? Magical realism in Southeast Asia, a blend of 1920s gangster culture, post-apocalyptic setting, medieval fantasy with frog wizards. So it's basically like, as a group, you can sit down and ask yourself, I think it's like 5 questions. The first one is, what kind of setting resonates or intrigues you? The second is, what characters do you want to play in this world, and how do they meet? So this is literally just walking through a 0 session, which again, if you've never played a role-playing game before, I think this book does a really good introduction to tabletop role-playing games as far as this early part.
Totally. And I think for stuff like this, there's a big implication of like, and a lot of rule sets I've said have not done this well. When you write down, like, you should do this with your players and this should be a communal thing, it reinforces that idea this is a communal storytelling thing and a social event, instead of like, you're the dungeon master, you decide what happens, which I always a little bit hated, because I kind of want this back and forth with the story stuff. And it's good for books like this to lay it out like that, because I think it sets the pace for you as the player or guide to be like, oh, okay, so this is a communal thing we do together. I'm into it.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Third question, are there themes you want to see in the story? So the dark side of anointed heroes, cold revenge, something else entirely. I think the questions that they do are really good too, but the following 2 questions are essential and must not be skipped, because these last 2 questions are literally like about like playing the game. Number 4 was, how long should the game last? So The Doom is time bound, encompassing a finite number of sessions. Arc works best with 1 to 3 session games, although you can play for longer. So it's geared to be run at 1 to 3, but it talks about having long campaigns up to like 12 and the various ways that you can adapt the clock to fit that. And then number 5, do we have the same understanding on playstyle and safety? The only thing that I wish that could have been added to this, because I think this is fantastic, as we've talked about, like the intro is really good, these 5 questions are really good. I wish that they had used some of the current tabletop role-playing game vernacular to describe what these things are, like calling this a 0 session and calling these safety tools, and things like that. I think would help, because someone's going to read something later, maybe even like an Adam Bass book or something, where it specifically says safety tools, and they're going to be like, oh, I've looked at this in Arc, you know? So if they had just added in the current vernacular, I think we've talked about this before. If you're going to deviate slightly from it, it should still like kind of embody it, versus like there's a word for this that already exists and you're picking a different one just because. I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but it's nice to have that association. And it does talk about, you know, being on the same page with safety tools and everything. So that is really nice. I just wish at some point it did say, these are what we call safety tools, and you can find other things like lines and veils and stuff like that in places too. Guide, once this is done, you must flesh it out further by asking yourself a few more questions. So this is one of the things I'm talking about. There's a section here that says you can read the questions now and answer them after the players have made their heroes. Chapter 2, but you can't click on that and go to no, I just clicked to the next page. I tricked myself, because when you click on the link, it goes down. So that would really set it over the edge if it references chapter 2, and then that reference would be hyperlinked. So not Troika. Number 6, what kind of Doom incorporates the setting's themes alongside heroes, rumors, bonds, and personalities? Note, each player's answers to hero creation's character building questions and build bits of the story from there. Will the apocalypse be war, a cruel winter, heartbreaking wedding? Doom manifests in different ways. I
do like this. I like the setup for this. I really like this, especially like for me, because I like fantasies and space fantasies, and it's just like, yeah, I would love to be like, yeah, the world's fucking ending, and you're in your weird fantasy world, and there's a never-ending winter coming. It's arrived, and you have a certain amount of days before everything dies, because it's a never-ending winter, so you better solve the problem. It sounds fucking fun, man. Like, I like that. And also, like, I think a lot of us, when we do these very open-ended games, have a hard time giving players a sense of urgency. But if you know what will give them a sense of urgency, a fucking clock.
A literal clock, like a literal counting doomsday clock. Yes, I completely agree with you.
Man. They're all gonna die. So
yeah, and there's little pieces within that too when you talk about the omens and stuff. So one of the things that says here on the side, subplots are formalized through game mechanics that are called omens, which is discussed shortly. So basically, it's a way to break your main arc into smaller arcs that do affect your clock, which is really neat. And then number 7, what subplots can heroes discover and pursue? That's what we just talked about with the omens. So we'll get to that in just a second. Number 8 is what memorable ideas, events, or characters can support your story. So this is literally just making up NPCs and stuff. But again, if you answer each question as you go, you'll create the world as you go, which is cool. I do think this kind of game benefits.
Great. This part's such a strong part. Like, honestly, you could take this part out and you could use it in any kind of game where you want to set up your own doomsday, and it asks really good questions. It has you engage a lot, and it sets a good pacing. I really like this. You know?
I honestly think if you just took the Doom stuff out of it, you could set up any game by doing this.
Yeah. Yes.
Literally. Like, you're literally just asking, what kind of game do you want to play? What kind of players do you want to be? And then asking yourself, you know, what can I do to make that world? What are the characters that can support that world? What are the subplots that can come from that? This is a great way to start any game, realistically.
Yeah.
So really well done. I really like this a lot. And it literally says, so guide, you have a rough outline for a story as well as strong idea for the Doom. You've literally created an outline of what you're going to do. Let's see how it goes. Division of tasks. While not related to story setup, it can be meaningful to discuss supporting tasks to add value to play. Guide, you have the power to bring up and delegate the following: coordinating schedules, taking notes, answering simple rules questions, tracking who's next in a conflict. I love this. You know, I really encourage. I think a lot of people, especially when they first get into 5th edition, don't feel like they can pass things on to other people.
Right.
But I know when I was early on, before, like anything now, like especially at a table, I can manage 10 things at once. Like I can be talking while switching the music to a different scene, or, you know, I know the rules enough. I don't need to reference this or that. But when you first start, having someone keep track of initiative so you don't have to,
and
having someone like turn like music so you don't have to, just give them a playlist and say, this is battle, this is not battle. Whenever we're in roll for initiative, just switch to battle for me. Just that enough, like the division of tasks.
I have never in the entire time I've played tabletop games tracked the initiative for my group. I've always elected somebody to do that because I'm just, hey, I'm not doing this. Like, you let me know who's coming up next in the order because I'm doing other things, especially in 5e because you're like, I'm gonna run all these fucking monster stats.
So I think we're just continuously saying the way that you set this game up can be used in just about any game and is done incredibly well. I think she did a wonderful job.
This person definitely plays fucking tabletop games. Like, what this opening section tells me is that this person fucking plays tabletop games because this is really solid advice. And some of it we all know, but a lot of people don't. But shout out that.
Yeah,
also,
absolutely.
This art's fucking cool.
So this art is fucking cool. It's on page 29. It's a picture of what looks like a clock behind and some type of skeletal / ghostly figure behind a girl that's got this third eye over her face with these kind of black and red eyes. If the entire book was in this color scheme with this kind of art,
yes,
yeah, it would make more sense to me. There would be less of a disconnect. Yeah. So page 30, orchestrating the omens. Omens are story fronts contributing to the advancing doom. While they may not directly cause the doom, they speed its arrival. Think of them as mini story arcs. Start the game with 3 omens. So they're literally mini arcs within your arc. So if you have a 3-session arc, you can have an omen on each session that can contribute to or push away the doom, which is really cool. If your doom is the escape of a demon lord hungry to consume the entire kingdom, the omens could be: the local cult is hoarding golden gems for a secret ritual. The Lord's council is disbanded, leaving royal defenses scant and uncoordinated. Or the Grey Magus, has disappeared, leaving only a mysterious map. So they are literally mini stories within the arc of your story. So you can create these subplot moments. It gives a bunch of different examples, which is really cool. But heroes, skipping from that on to page 31, heroes can resolve omens to slow down the doom. Resolutions happen when they've removed its cause or have rendered the subplot's impact moot. In the above example, the local cult is hoarding golden gems. You can resolve the omen by defeating all cult members, stealing all valuables, convincing the cult to disarm, asking the local kowal to intervene, or even burning down the cult's headquarters. So literally, you just have to stop that subplot from furthering in some way, and you resolve the omen.
This is good story building. You know, like, this is really good. Like,
great story building.
It's really great. Just good story building. Yeah. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah, I fuck with this heavily.
I think that especially my design kind of beef with this.
Yeah.
It's a personal beef. I don't think that necessarily affects. Again, I wish the layout for a Doom game full of omens and shit like that was just a little darker. You know me.
Yeah.
I want my dark.
I want
my dark shit. You know. Because honestly, you could set up a Merc board game using this. You know.
Yeah.
You could really even run. I mean, you don't need the Doomsday Clock because you literally have the miseries to roll. So. But
if you did want to run miseries instead and you wanted to run Doomsday Clock, you could, and you could set up miseries as part of your Doomsday Clock that you just don't roll for, you know? You could have the miseries literally being omens, you know what I mean? You wouldn't call them that because omens already exist in the game, but same concept. But when I think of how this game is, what you do in the game, Merkborg is what comes to my head, like that dark setting, that like kind of like gruesome, grimdarky stuff. And again, the way that the book is written, this very, very graphically designed, modern, right. Like fonts and stuff like that. Again, I reading this and reading it again, I feel like there's disconnect. So
So you're not supposed to inform the players when they've stumbled upon an omen. I can only imagine when they get to a side quest that they're going to realize it, but it's fine. But it says, for example,
this part of the book.
Yeah. You're not supposed to tell them, but you're supposed to give them clues. For example, the town crier can proclaim that something is amiss or a villain killed the priestess and left a calling card. That, kind of gives them the sense, oh, maybe this is an omen. Can an omen stay active even when heroes have already attempted to address it? In our example above, perhaps the heroes informed the koala about the situation but told a deeply incomplete story, resulting in the guards being ill-prepared to corral the cultists. The omen can still be unresolved in this case. If the hero's approach is mismatched or significantly inadequate, the story should reflect a non-improvement.
If you fail, you should fail. I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree with that.
Alternative ruling for short games. For games less than 3 hours long, you can play with just 2 omens instead of 3 to keep the story lean. So building the Doomsday Clock. This is a really cool thing. So the Doomsday Clock charts the apocalypse's inevitable approach, advancing at set time intervals. Once it reaches its end, the doom is unleashed. The Doomsday Clock is made up of discrete intervals called moments. Its speed and number depend on how long you intend to run the game. So there's a thing that makes sense in this part of the game right now, which is real world time. But throughout the course of the book, they talk about real world time a bunch of times in ways that I'm not a big fan of, and we'll get to those. But if you remember, and we'll talk about it again later, short rests and stuff like that, and the way that they're written, we'll talk about it. So
I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. So there's a really nice chart here that has number of sessions, number of moments, and the Doomsday Clock advances every, right? So for one session, the number of moments, there's 3 per hour of play. Example, for a 4-hour session, the Doomsday Clock has 12 moments, 4 times 3, and advances every 30 minutes. So it literally says Doomsday Clock advances every 30 minutes. So you'll literally move your clock forward every half an hour in a 4-hour session. In a 2 to 3 session game, it's 1.5 for number of moments. It's 1.5 per hour of play rounded up. So for 2 5-hour sessions, the Doomsday Clock has 15 moments because it's 10 times 1.5, and it advances every hour. And then for 4+ sessions, it's again 1.5 per session. But for 7 sessions, Doomsday Clock has 11 moments, 7 times 1.5, and advances every session. So long story short, if there's only 1 session, it advances every 30. If there's 2 to 3 sessions, it advances every hour. And if there's 4+ sessions, it advances every session. So it's a really, I think that's a really clean way to determine the length of your clock. Yeah,
I agree.
Every time the Doomsday Clock advances, one moment is consumed, which is interesting because there's other ways that those moments can be used up. And we'll get to that. Then roll a d6 equal to the number of omens still in play, consuming 1 more moment for every 5 or 6. So every time the Doomsday Clock advances, however many omens are still left in your story, you roll that many d6s. And if any of them land on a 5 or a 6, you remove another moment. So the clock winds down even more. But I personally like it depends on how many games you're running, but they do have an alternate option where you roll all of your dice, and if any of them have a 5 or a 6, you just take away 1 additional moment. Because say you roll 4 d6s and you get 3 5s and a 2.
I think I prefer that, actually.
Yeah. It just depends on how the dice roll. I mean, you could just have a really short game because you got fucked with the dice rolls, because statistically you're not going to get 4 5s on 5d6s.
Well, we know how consistent dice statistics are in practice.
Yeah. But I do like the alternate rule where you just take away softer risks is what they call it. Basically, you roll to take away 1 additional moment, but that's the max number that you can take away. And it is the ideal for games less than 3 hours. Basically, that's a good way to do one-shots, especially because you're going to have so many fewer moments in a shorter campaign anyway.
I agree with that.
Another beautiful piece of art that is just a piece of art.
It's such great art, but it's just way too peaceful and beautiful and calming for a game about you saving the world from ending.
And it's a little bit non sequitur too, right? Like, what does this have to do with anything? It's gorgeous. No, I mean, don't get me wrong.
Well, also, yeah, it's like we're not even in the character. Like, this is a good piece of art before your character creator session or section. You know what I mean?
But we're not at the character creation section. So the art is just this woman in what appears to be kind of like a golden headdress with this, you know, kind of cyan colored makeup. Anyway, it's really well done. But part D, when Doom is vanquished, through skills and teamwork, the heroes ascend as legends of the land, their names forever remembered. What happens next? You bask in your success or face ever grander dooms. And then when Doom vanquishes all, it is entirely possible for heroes to do their best and still fail. The doom happens, the tears fall, such is life. You get like 2 options. Yeah, I love it, dude. You can totally fucking lose. You probably will.
I like failure. Offering the option for failure makes a game more engaging. And seem more alive. I was playing the Outer Worlds and I was just killing everybody, and there's not really any like negative repercussion in the long term for just killing everybody. And I was just like, well, that's not really satisfying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. I like consequences, you know, and I do like failure. Like, one of the things I like most about, you know, the 2d6 kind of Powered by the Apocalypse system and when we ran Victory Basic, you know, it's one of the things I like about 7 and 9s is sometimes your success can still feel like a failure based on the consequences. You know what I mean? So I hate gets.
Yeah, it's very true.
So 2 options.
Especially with your consequences.
Hey, listen, it was almost all randomly rolled. You all TPK'd because you didn't think that the rubies and a devil face were important. When I had to like figure out how much you wanted them to be worth because you wanted to sell it and I didn't have that prepared, it was probably a good indicator that you probably shouldn't have sold it. Anyway,
I'd do it again.
Yeah, the epilogue or New Beginnings. If you fail, basically, if you fail to defeat the apocalypse, you can choose to accept the world's end. Allow each player to say 2 to 3 sentences describing their hero's life after the apocalypse, and once they're done, that's it. You lost. The world's over. Or New Beginning. The apocalypse may have happened, but new beginnings can still flourish. Use the ruins of the world to create a sequel with even higher stakes.
I like that. I like that, you know, and depending on what doom you guys are facing, it's like, because in some situations I could see this fucking cat is like just so ready for pets. Like, yeah, like it doesn't really make sense for us to continue on after this doom. There's nowhere for us to go. And in some situations it'd be like, no, like there's definitely somewhere for us to go, you know, like
absolutely.
There's a lot for us to do. The world's just different now. Come here, cat.
So I'm sorry, it's not 2, it's 3 things. And I brought this up earlier. The third option is the rewind, which when I first started reading it, I was like, but then when I got to the end of this page, I was like, oh, that's neat. So you choose to rebel against destiny. Perhaps there's a second chance. Agree as a table up to what point in the story you want time to be rewound. All heroes retain their stats, inventory, as well as memories of the fallen future. The Doomsday Clock goes back.
That's sick. Actually, that's really cool.
Oh, wait, no. The Doomsday Clock goes back in time as well. If your game is 1 shot, restore 2 moments. If your game is 2 to 3 sessions, restore 1 moment. If your game is more sessions, restore just 1 moment per session left. I'm sorry. The second one was restore 1 moment per total hour of play left for 2 to 3 sessions. But do not take this choice lightly. If you rewind time, decide or roll 1d6. We love our random rolls here. A beloved ally turns to dust. An innocent maiden kills her mother. 3 pale girls rise from the dead and snake their way towards the heroes. A god dies, their body flung to the world below. A small humble family becomes a new plague's first victim, or a new omen comes to light. Play the game as normal, forever burdened by visions of the alter future. I like that. It's kind of like you could try again, but there's consequences to your action.
I do too. Although I think depending on what setting we're doing, I think I would actually custom pick the consequence. I might not roll for it. I do like the god dies, their bodies flung to the world below. It's just thinking like, you ever play Final Fantasy 15?
No.
Oh, there's a massive crater in the middle, and it's literally a god's body, or in the mountain. But yeah, just
Well,
like
spoilers.
whatever. It's been that game's been out for like 4 years. If that ruined the plot for you, you're a fucking idiot. Play the game. You know.
Page 38, moving into hero creation, chapter 2.
Okay.
Now
we're gonna get into it now.
So this is the part where I was like, what? And then core rules is I was like, what? So yeah. So
First off, the art on 39 is weird.
Yeah, it's like a little kitten with a camera looking at fireflies is what it looks like to me.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Yeah, that's a character you could create. I mean, you can create pretty much any kind of character you can think of. I guess.
But again, it's very cutesy and whimsical. It doesn't feel very doomy, and it feels very whimsical. For our Doom world, where we just talked about gods being flung to the surface of the world.
I know.
Excuse me. That's what I feel. This is just disjointed, non sequitur kind of art throughout the book. And then we get to this player section page, which is just beautiful. It's like these white pages with these like kind of blue-green blocks and golden edged boxes and stuff. So again, it's beautifully laid out. It just doesn't feel like it fits the vibe of the game.
Yeah.
So player, you move the story and explore the collective world through your heroes. You can play any hero you want, etc., etc. So there is a random hero generator, which I think is neat. You roll 1d6 on every list below if you want. So your hero is a what?
I'm gonna roll for it.
Why don't you roll a d6 here?
Okay. Boop. I rolled a 1.
Amphibious. Roll me another d6.
2.
An amphibious amphibious noblin. I don't know what a noblin is.
Like a goblin. 6.
Sure, we'll say that. Who perfected the recipe for capybara curry.
5.
And has 6 fingers on both hands.
Hell yeah.
That is the character that you just created. So, good times. Interesting roll tables, but again, this is one of those things where you could really modify a roll table specific to your Doom if you wanted characters to have that option. So I don't think that these tables are necessarily meant to be like, these are the other ones you can roll on. Obviously, I feel like those are more just inspirations for the kind of things that you could use to make your own
skeleton
table.
Structure. Like you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is what it looks like. I can make my own options very easily.
Yeah.
So
and it's nice to, the first time you ever played this game, it's there. And then if you can continue to play the game, everyone could come up with their own tables. Like I imagine people being like, hey, for next time, why don't you create a table of what you could be? Why don't you create a table of this? Why don't you create a table of that? Then we'll all get to roll on each other's little creations. I think that'd be really neat. So 6 parts to determining your character. 1 is determine approach scores. 2 is assign blood and guts modifiers. 3 is assign skill ranks. 4 is determine inventory. 5 is answer character building questions. And 6 is determine bonds. So we're definitely getting into the part where the game shies away pretty heavily from rules light right as we get into the rules.
Yeah. Inventory is an interesting one that we're going to go over. I always thought the inventory was interesting.
I think interesting is an okay word for it.
Yeah.
Every step you have the option of randomly rolling instead of assigning a value, which is cool. You know, we love those rolls. The how to play arc section in the introduction. Again, when you click introduction, it doesn't take you back to the introduction. Already give an overview of the hero's aspects. And you can check out hero creation and action in the appendix, which again is really, really, really cool. What if you make a terrible hero? Again, a really good intro to tabletop role-playing games that straight up says it's about having fun, not min-maxing, is basically what the story says. Is you might feel that your character is not necessarily powerful, but you don't have to be the most powerful character to have fun and to do cool stuff. You know, so long as they fit in the setting and want to save the world, there are no wrong decisions. That's the end of this section. Really smart. Again, did a really good job writing a game for... I don't necessarily think the game is for beginners, but I think it is incredibly beginner friendly.
I agree.
Yeah. Like you could be someone who's played games for 20 years and pick up this game and have a really good time with it. But you could also be someone who's never played a game before, read this book, and I feel like have a good understanding of how to play a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So step 0, inspect the character sheet. So one cool thing, they have a lot of support for this. You can go to the website and download the character sheets, which is really nice because, again, in games that are much less rules light than I think they portray themselves to be, having all of your stuff and all of the math and everything laid out in front of you makes it a lot easier to understand. So there is a kind of preview of the character sheet here. It says go to arc-rpg.com to download the character sheets. So go do that. So step 1.
They are actually very pretty character sheets as well, just FYI. Like, they do look very pretty.
Yeah, I mean, this entire book is beautiful. It's gorgeous. Again, I just wish it was like red and black and doomy, you know? Step 1, determine approach scores. So this is where I started getting lost and read a bunch of things a bunch of times. There's a lot of algebra in the rules of this game.
It's a little mathy, you know?
It's super mathy, which and I think the way it's written feels very distilled. I don't know, like maybe that's not even the word I'm looking for. Sterile. It reminds me of Warpland in that I feel like it's not written the way I talk. You know what I mean? Like, it's written very, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Very dictionary. Like, this unto this with the thrice and the this and, like, I don't know. We'll read it and you'll understand where I'm coming from. Like, you understand what I'm saying. The listeners.
Yeah, I do. This is what I look over the most, actually.
Yeah. Approach scores represent the hero's aptitude. Yeah, approach scores represent the hero's aptitude for solving problems and using skills in particular ways. Do they tend towards creative solutions? Are they careful and detail-oriented? Or do they gravitate towards resolving challenges through sheer concerted effort? There are 3 approaches: creative, careful, and concerted. And before we get into those, we are going to take a quick break. So give us just a moment. We're going to come back to the 3 aspects of approach scores. So see you in just a second. Hello, and we are back. So, We are looking at the approach scores, which have 3 aspects to them: creative, careful, and concerted. So skills using a creative approach are performed in interesting, unusual, and surprising ways. Excuse me. Cleverness also applies to creative skills. Skills using a careful approach utilize close attention to detail, analyzing variables, and ensuring the action does not trigger any unwanted consequences. And skills using a concerted approach exemplify effort, grit, and willpower. Each score goes from 0 to +3, as a lot of games do. 0 means you ain't no shit. +1 is average, 2 is gifted, and 3 is an expert. So we have a whole page of what amounts to math. And I was a straight A student in every class I ever took from any time I ever got any grade, right? Except for math and Spanish.
Okay. So basically, here, I'll take the reins on this one. So basically, what you are doing when you roll for something, more or less, is that there's going to be a threshold number that you need to roll below on a D6 whenever you're trying to do a skill-based thing. And what you do is you add the relevant skill with the approach score. So let's say you have a 2 in the skill and a 1 in the approach score. And you have to just roll under that with a D6. So the bigger the number, so the more skill you have in either the approach or the actual skill, relevant skill itself, the bigger that number is. Obviously, +3 being the max. So I think skills can get to 3 as well. We haven't got skills yet. We'll just find out. But yeah, so then you roll under with a D6. It's explained in a way that seems very long-winded on this page.
Yeah. No, and I get that part, but the thing is, as we get farther in, there's like 5 other modifiers you have for this too, because you have your bonds and you have this and you have that. It's just interesting. Yeah, right? It's not just this simple, about that, right?
Yeah.
So to read what's on the page, so you guys know what we're saying. It says approach numbers determine how well your hero performs in action. Your hero's approach score plus their ranks and a relevant skill set a threshold number for a given task. You roll 1d6 hoping for a result under the threshold. You said it in a way that's easier for me to digest. It's not that hard, this part is, but it keeps adding, right? This means the higher the threshold number, the easier it is to succeed, but they mark it as TN. So you literally get to a point where it's like 1d6 +3 below TN is this and that. It becomes like an equation. It really does. Yeah. Which I guess a lot of tabletop role-playing games are.
I think the other thing is like TN is a new term. You know, it's not like DCAC. Whatever.
If all approach scores become 0, your hero falls. So chapter 3, life, death, and naps for what happens next. Again, it's a game about doom, and the naps thing just feels
I like the naps thing. I think you can keep the naps thing. You're not sleeping, you're taking naps, buddy.
It feels doomy. It's called a short rest, not a nap. For what happens next, approach scores can also be increased during play when you evolve your hero. So again, there's a chart here for everything that he just said. So to determine your hero's approach scores, assign each of the following scores to an approach: 0, 1, and 2. So I assume that means you literally start with those 3 things and you give 1 a 0, 1 a 1, and 1 a 2.
Yeah.
But again, there's options to randomly roll if you want to do that. And if you roll a 1 to 2, it's creative. A 3 to 4, it's careful. And a 5 to 6, it's concerted. If the maximum number of points you have to distribute is only 1, don't worry, you'll receive extra, blah, blah, blah. So assigning, this is step 2 now, right, of the 6. Assigning blood and guts modifiers, because it's not just your approach scores and your threshold numbers with your skills. You also have blood and guts modifiers.
This is a good piece of art, too.
Yeah, it's a good piece of art. It's just a neat piece of art, but it doesn't really do or say or anything. It's just a character.
It's darker, though. You know,
it is darker,
it's
and
a little
the section,
less whimsical.
And the section is written on this like really nice dark red, which I enjoy for the blood and gut section.
For blood and guts.
So blood is the hero's ability to withstand physical harm. If blood is reduced to 0 or less, the next damage it receives reduces approach scores instead. Long story short, as it said earlier, if your approach score hits 0, all 3 of your approach scores hit 0, you dead. You done did a dead. Kind of. There's ways that you don't die. Like you can just choose not to, but we'll get there. So basically, blood is physical harm, and then guts is a measure of the hero's ability to withstand mental or social harm. Same exact thing happens. If your guts is reduced to 0, the next time you take damage off your approach scores. So this is the same kind of concept as like Lancers, like you take damage to something before you take core damage.
Right.
And then
or into the odd.
That was going to say into the odd. You don't really take. How does into the odd work as far as that goes?
You take damage to your hit protection first, and then you take damage to stats.
Yes. And it's just to strength, right? And when your strength is 0, you're done. So
it's to strength to kill you, but you can actually damage other stats for other effects, such as if you get somebody down to 0 will, they just go brain dead, and you have to drag them around. So yeah.
So this is a similar concept, which is newer as far as I'm concerned with tabletop role-playing games, where like you reduce. Yeah, I like the concept of like you reduce something to reduce something afterwards. It's interesting. Hey, Map, thank you so much for the raid. We appreciate that. We are reviewing Ark, the Doom tabletop RPG. Thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Raiders. So we are in character creation section now, part 2, talking about blood and guts and how that works. So blood and guts can vary from day to day, which again, you start, I don't know. When your hero wakes up from a long rest, so this is the first time you see this come up, and I don't like it. I'll straight up say, I can't even rationalize a way that I like it. I don't like it. A long rest is a break taking 5 real-time minutes and up to 10 in-story hours. You have the option of rolling for their new blood and guts for the rest of the day. 2d6 plus a modifier determined during hero creation. If you choose not to roll, they simply gain a small amount of health back. So I guess I just don't like what is if everyone's like, we're taking a long rest, so let's just sit here for 5 minutes.
Bathroom break. We just took a long rest, you know?
I mean, I understand that, but like, no, I don't understand. There's not a rationale to just be like, all right, we take a long rest. Like, I guess the concept is like, since some of the modifiers for moments are based on hours and stuff like that, but
right.
taking a 5-minute part out of a game, because games are going to run short or long anyway, based on when's a good stopping point.
Yeah.
There is no rational reason I could think of, and I thought about this for a while, that you need to actually say, okay, let's set a 5-minute timer, go fuck around somewhere else instead of playing the game we're all here to play.
Yeah, I feel like that's quantifying a thing that doesn't really need to be quantified. Like, you're going to take breaks in the gameplay. It doesn't need to be gameplay affecting, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely an overcomplication that's unnecessary.
I gotta get this cat out of this closet. Keep talking.
All right. So, 2d6 plus a modifier determines your initial blood and gut scores, right? So, but there's other options, right? So say your hero has 15 blood and 6 guts from the previous day. If you choose to re-roll, you roll 2d6 each for blood and guts, then add their modifiers to the individual results, because you picked something that modifies blood and something that modifies guts, right? That's what I get from it.
Yeah.
If you get a total of 12 and 10 for blood and guts, for example, it overwrites the current health and becomes your hero's new health stats. So you can risk it for the biscuit if you think you're going to roll higher, but if you got decent blood and gut scores, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I agree.
ACB, it says maybe make it 2 minutes. I do believe the short rests are 2 minutes, so that already exists. It's just the real time long rests.
I mean, the other thing is that like I don't need to penalize my players in game or like affect them in game for recapping or talking about what they just went through. Like, I want them to have that room to discuss. I don't know if I want to quantify that with like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like the forced 5-minute break.
Yeah.
And again, I think the short rest, when we get to rests and naps and whatever, I do believe short rests were 2 minutes. So there are other
Matt,
things.
You're not missing any context. We are also confused about that aspect specifically. So
yeah. So there are parts of the game that do talk about real world time. Like, there's a set number of
true.
Kind of, but there's a set number of moments in a game which determines the doomsday clock, because this game is literally about counting down an actual clock. So there is a set amount of moments in a set amount of time, but it's over the course of like hours and sessions. So a 5-minute forced real-time break, all that does, I mean, since you are literally using an actual clock, if it's 30 minutes to the next one and you literally have to take 5 minutes off, I would rather just say remove 5 minutes from your clock, you know?
I mean, or like, I don't know. I don't love it. I like the other I like the other timing mechanics and stuff like that, but like, I don't know if all my players are like, hey, like, this is a good resting point. We all need to take a bathroom break and stretch our legs. I don't know if I'm going to go, okay, well, the clock's going to still tick for 5 minutes. It's going to take 5 minutes away from your clock, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So the entire game is about stopping the apocalypse map. And for those listening, when we say map, we were rated by Map This Dungeon, who is another streamer, member of our community and our own as well. So when we say map, we're talking to a specific person. Yeah, I mean, again, if you're doing the short session one where a moment disappears every 30 minutes, I guess I understand, like, when you take a long rest, you're literally losing time on your clock. But again, I still think it would make more sense to just say, take 5 minutes off the clock. Because I'm not going to just sit here and let the clock tick down IRL versus removing 5 seconds from the clock.
I'm more fine with that, you know? Yeah.
But even that, I mean, the odds of taking, if you're only doing a 1-session game, the odds of how many long rests are you going to take? In the course of like a 3-hour session, 5 minutes isn't really going to change a whole lot.
Yeah.
So that's a part that I was not a super huge fan of. I think there's different ways to do it. I think this is maybe cleanish.
Yeah.
But not necessarily.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. So modifiers for Blood and Guts do not have to be the same. They can be increased during play. Again, if it says see chapter 3, I should be able to click there and go to chapter 3. But you'll set its starting value now. To determine your base Blood and Guts modifier, allocate modifiers to Blood and Guts so their sum is 6. This is another part where I'm like, this is just straight fucking math. Like, speak to me. I don't want to read this. So I don't understand that. Do you understand that?
Allocate modifiers of Blood and Guts so their sum is 6. So the sum of both.
So do I literally just say, like, that my modifier to Blood and Guts is not a different score? It's literally, I have a Blood modifier and a Guts modifier, and between those two things, I have 6 points.
Equal 6, yes.
So I could do 4 Blood and 2 Guts.
2 Guts, yes. That's what I'm getting from it.
I think this could be written in a way that makes that more clear.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and then to randomly roll, you roll 1d6 and record the result for Blood, roll again for Guts. If the sum of both modifiers is less than or equal to 3, you'll receive an extra inventory item to make up for it. So basically, you would have to roll double ones to be less than 3. Oh, I guess, or equal to 3, or equal to. How do you remember less than or greater than symbol?
I don't know. I don't have like a mechanism for it. I've just seen them enough.
Oh, see, I'm a kind of person who I don't really like remembering things by remembering something else. But for this one, this is one of the ones I always did. First of all, it's like the little fish eating the big fish. So, you know, the lesser one has always got the open mouth. But also, if you look at the symbol for less than, you know, it's always pointing to the left, right? If you kind of angle it a little bit, it's an L. Like a squished L, but it's kind of a capital L that's just a little skinny. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah.
That's how I always remember it.
I'm tracking you.
That looks like, if it is a little bit more of an acute angle, but if it was a 90-degree angle, it's an L, right? So anyway, that's for you out there in podcast land. You're welcome. Now you remember that forever. Step 3, assign skill ranks. Heroes use their skills to solve a wide array of challenges, such as defeating. Assign your Blood and Guts modifiers. What you got, son? Blood is your body, Guts is your mind, basically.
I'm gonna roll some d6s.
Yeah, roll 2d6s and see what we got. You could also just roll 1d6, and what's left is your Guts. You know what I mean?
So 4 is my blood. So 2 is your guts.
There you go. And that's your character, your amphibious Noblin Capybara curry, six-handed guy. Person.
Six-fingered.
Thing. Yeah, six-fingered. Heroes user
Popular
skills.
with ladies.
Yeah. There are a total of 18 skills divided across 5 categories. Yes, that exists. Hey, thank you for the follow, ACB. And yes, did we just hit 69% of our community challenge for Eric Runs Gamma World? No one else can contribute. Yeah,
yep, we're done.
So there's 18 skills. I like skills. I don't know if I like 18 skills. It's just a bunch. So, and they're all broken across 5 categories. So in knowledge, you have academics, which is what it sounds like, pursuit of knowledge; culture, which is the ability to attune with a community's beliefs, like bowing correctly to a witch warrior, or noticing a coded folk song, or realizing the truth behind some folklore. Kind of neat. I like that.
Yeah, it's culture stuff. Yeah. They're named appropriately. So
yeah. Observing, which is literally observing; tactics, which is literally like battle tactics. And those are knowledge skills. Then you have social skills, which is charisma and guile, which are exactly what it sounds like, being approachable and being deceptive. Impose, which is to radiate a sense of authority. Insight, which is exactly what it sounds like. You got some physical skills, which is acrobatics and coordination. You got and physique and weaponry. Weaponry is interesting. It's literally like applying sword carrying maintenance, mastering an unwieldy warhammer, knowing a weapon's weak points. So it's literally not just like wielding a weapon, but knowing all the things that involve weapons.
That's cool. I like that.
Which is neat. Yeah. Pragmatic skills: artistry, tinker, survival, and trade. And then prowess, which is arcana and focus. So those are important because they have to do with arcana specifically is spells, and focus is specifically techniques, which is part of your inventory, which is interesting, and we'll get to that.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. Skills have a rank from 0 to +3, similar to approaches, which means 0 you're bad and 3 you're really good. So if you have a +3 on an approach and a +3 on a skill, you literally can't fail.
Yeah, you can't fail.
You can succeed with consequences or something like that. There is a tie mechanic, so the worst you can do is a tie. So that's interesting. And as we have determined already, it's a 1d6 system, which is neat. I think there was another one that we looked at that was like 1d6, or one I've read recently that was 1d6. Where I think
you and I talked about something. I can't remember what it was, but I don't know if we did it on the show. But you and I talked about something.
Yeah. Skill ranks can be increased during play. Again, check chapter 3. To determine your hero's skills, you allocate skills. You allocate +2 to 2 skills and +1 to 3 skills. So you get 5 out of those 18 skills. 2 get 2s and 3 get 1s.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good number of skills. I mean, that's a good character, you know?
Yeah, it's decent. It's decent. Out of those 18, I can think of 5 that you could really define a character with, because I definitely wouldn't pick 5 random skills. I would try to craft.
No, I would make a character, but you could give them. I'm good with that. You know, I like being able to pick skills and them not necessarily being based on any sort of stat.
Yeah,
because I like playing the fighter that is unbelievably charming or whatever. You know.
Yes. And
you know, I don't like when stats are tied to skills directly, because it's like, okay, well, you're going to limit me because then I can only make my character be this character. So.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Thank you so much for the contribution, Jordan. 14K already to the Gamma World Challenge. So, yeah, I completely agree. I really like stats not tied to, or skills not tied to stats. Like, you get to make the character you want to make. And just because you can have contradictory parts of a person, like you just said, that was a great example.
Yes, absolutely. That's realistic. People are contradictory within themselves, you know, so.
It's kind of like the whole concept of like the scholar warrior too. You know what I mean? Like if you create a 5th edition character, it's hard to make someone that's got like really high int and also a really good warrior, you know, because at the very highest, your int's going to be like your 3rd score anyway. So if you're, you know, going for the stats, but again, for this, there's a way to randomly roll. Like they said at the beginning of the chapter, there's an option to randomly roll all of this. There's also this piece of stuff, which I actually really enjoy. It is literally a random skills table. So it's literally a breakdown of all of the options. If you roll 2d6s, it gives you your first and second die roll, and it'll give you the twos and the ones. So why don't you roll me 2d6s twice? So what I mean by that is it's literally like boxes that say 1 1, 1 2, 1 3, 1 4, 1 5.
6 5 plus 1 to Arcana.
Oh, you have to get below 3s in the beginning. Interesting. So yeah, okay, roll again.
2 4.
2 4, you get +2 in coordination, so that's your +2 skill.
Cool. 6 3 is another one of my ones, so it's Tinker.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 3.
Ooh, acrobatics. So
Acrobatic.
coordination and acrobatics really tie in well together. So you have like a very dexterous character is what it feels like that likes to tinker.
How many points do I have left? I have 2 more number 1s, right?
I think you just have 1 because you have acrobatics, coordination, tinker, and
Oh, you're right. Well, and the last one is +1 culture.
+1 culture. You are a man of culture, sir.
You know what this character sounds like to me?
Yeah.
A traveling circus person. You know what I mean? The tinker. They can do acrobatics. They're very coordinated. They're very cultured. They've been around. They've seen things. I'm playing an acrobat in a circus.
Like a geek. Oh, that hit too hard.
All right. So, bye, everyone. Fucking bye. Yeah. Fuck you, Ryan. What the fuck, man?
Hey, thank you for the follow. Yeah, no, thank you for the follow. Movie. Antler Harvest. I don't know why our alert box is not doing the alerts.
Oh,
I think I turned it off. I think I turned it off so that it wouldn't come through in the podcast. Which
we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, but thank you so much for the follow. Harvest. Well, the pop-up still comes up and I see it, but yes, wonderful. Couple follows, we really do appreciate it. Again, thanks for coming over in the raid. So step 4 is determining your inventory. Which again, an interesting part of that, we'll read it right now. Your inventory contains useful items for creating opportunities and capabilities for your hero. Surviving a cold night in the wilderness, for example, is much easier with a tent and a flint and tinder to make a fire. You may also have powerful abilities such as spells and techniques in your inventory. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I would prefer a separate like D6 of skills or spells and techniques, you know, to actually use up inventory slots that feel like physical
to use up
things.
Actual inventory slots, especially when you limit the inventory slots.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that because they feel too different to me. Like a spell and a tent are different, you know.
That's true. I would say that it's appropriate to say that a spell and a tent are 2 different things.
Right. Unless a spell creates a tent and then they're similar. So there are 5 categories from which you may obtain starting items: damage and defense, supplies and sundries, oddities and valuables, spells and techniques. Each category is represented by a numbered list of items. There's a bunch of ways to choose those items. To determine your hero's inventory, you can choose items from any of the lists totaling no more than 30 points. So the number, there's actually like a number set on each one. The numbers go to, I think, from 1 to 18, because you can also roll like 3d6. To randomly determine your hero's inventory, pick a list and choose whether you roll a 1d6, a 2d6, or a 3d6 on it. Add the resulting item to your inventory. Do this multiple times. You may roll on multiple lists until you've rolled a total of 12d6. So you could do, 3d6 4 times on one list and you're done, but because you've rolled your 12d6.
Yeah.
Other valid combinations. So 3d6 thrice on the spells list, 2d6 once on the techniques list, and it's fucking, you just roll.
You roll.
Then There's
It's
extra
telling
item
you
options.
different combinations of rolls.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So each time any of the following is true, add 9 points to your pool if you're using point value, or 3d6 to your dice if you're rolling. If the sum of your approach scores is 1, you get 9 extra points. If the sum of your modifier for blood and guts is less than 3, you get to add. And if the sum of your skill ranks is less than or equal to 4, you get to add stuff. A lot of that will only happen when you randomly roll, because if you don't randomly roll, it's usually like you're at the top. So I'll just read. Do you want to just roll like 2Ds, 1, 2, or 3d6 per list, and we'll just give an example of some of the stuff?
Yeah. How many you want me to roll right now?
I don't know. Just roll 3d6 on all of them because it's up to 18. So
Okay. I got 5, 3, 1, so 9 altogether.
A 9 is you get confidence, which is +1 guts damage, and personal growth, which is +1 guts defense. So there's a difference between these. So damage items provide bonuses to damage, and defense items reduce damage and also make it harder for you to be hit.
Okay.
You may only have one instance of any particular guts damage or guts defense items. So guts damage and guts defense do not stack.
But if I get another one, like if I have a +1 and then I get +2, somehow down the line, I'm gonna just take the +2 then. Yeah, but it doesn't stack and become a +3.
That's my assumption. Supplies and sundries, you can roll like 2d6 and we'll see what we get.
4, 6, 10.
10 is board games and a gallon of beer.
It's exactly what I would have with me.
There you go. Other options are crowbar and lantern, never tiring horse, and riding gear is your top out there.
Never tiring horse? Gee.
Yeah, just go and go. Oddities and valuables. Why don't you roll me 3d6 on this bad boy?
15.
Ooh, a fistful of seeds that when planted instantly become 6 height tall stalks. They never explain what height means in the game. They just start talking about it. I do believe height means roughly feet.
Okay.
But we'll get to, when we get to like combat and stuff later, they talk about height. So I don't know what height is.
We'll
have to find a definition. Why don't you look in the index? The other thing you can have is a vial of divine being's blood, or the pet turtle of a local tyrant. Cool piece of art. Spells and techniques. So this is interesting part. So they are rare and priceless special powers beyond normal hero skills. Spells are directly linked to Arcana. Techniques are directly linked to focus. Arcana manipulates the... Oh, what is it?
Lengths and short distances are indicated by heights. This approximates the average height of a person and is around 5 to 6 feet or 1.5 to 1.8 meters. So a height is like my one height is me.
So 6 height, 36 foot tall seeds?
It's a beanstalk. It's your freaking jacket.
Yeah.
Fucking beanstalk. It's also that's weird because it's in the time lengths and pronouns, which is a weird section.
Oh, we kind of blew through that in the beginning. Yeah. I think that's an intro section or something.
Yes.
So Arcana manipulates the external world, focus channels the internal. Multiple instances of a spell or technique indicate how many times it may be cast. So for example, with 2 instances of a spell, you can cast it twice before needing replenishment. And replenishing requires a ritual and restores all instances of a spell or technique. For example, if at any point you've held a maximum of 3 instances of a technique and you perform its ritual, all 3 instances are restored. Rituals can be as mundane as sleeping all day or as strange as burying fingernails. And they talk about more of that in chapter 4. So there is a spells list. Why don't you go ahead and roll me?
I rolled 10.
Well, this goes up to 24, so you got to roll 4d6.
Ooh, okay. Say less.
So first 10 is a master of elements. Air, earth, water, and fire are manipulated by your will. Oxford comma, please. What did you roll second time?
15.
15. Compel. Compel someone to act in a strange or chaotic manner.
Sounds like a neat
interesting spell. It does. It's not hold monster, but it works.
You know.
Why don't you roll me another 46?
19.
Ooh, there is no 19.
17, 18, 21.
So there must be a specific way that things are rolled. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 21, 24. There's got to be something that we're missing as far as... Because the spells don't have 19 or 20 either. There must be a specific way that you roll that you can't get those numbers.
It's the same way with techniques too. There's not a... Chat, are we stupid? Tell us. Email it to us.
I don't know. Because you can't get to the 24 with the 3d6. You can only get to 18, but it goes to 24, but it's only missing like 2, so you still can't get that high. Maybe, I don't know. Doesn't matter. So you can just roll something else.
How many dice?
Just roll 3d6.
8.
8. You get bind magic. Prevent someone from using spells and techniques. Yeah, I agree, Antler. There's got to be there's got to be something that explains it, but I can't find it. But we might have missed something as we were cruising through, and we'll have to dig a little bit harder. But it's interesting that it's both.
It's on purpose. It's definitely on purpose.
It's got to be on purpose. There's no way they just like skipped a couple. Like 18, 19, 20, all same results. So no, it just, there is no 19, 20, 22, or 23. How could you possibly not have 19, 20, 22, or 23? I don't know. So we'll find it, or we'll just skip it for now and come back to it.
Yeah.
So
Super
you can
weird,
answer.
though. What did we miss?
Right? I don't know. But we're going to keep cruising through. Read ARC and tell us. Shoot us an email. Come to our Twitch channel and be like, hey, dumbasses, this is the part on ARC that you missed. Drop us a YouTube comment that tells us we missed an important part of the mechanics. Answer the character building question to flesh out your hero's personality and backstory. Answer, what makes them different from others? There are 3 rumors about them. What are they and who believes it? What was the most painful lesson your hero had to learn? Those are fun, interesting backgrounds. So this bonds part, I think it's a really interesting mechanic that I don't know if I like. Like, I think it's cool, but do I feel like it's necessary? No. If I played the game, might I get rid of this? Probably. So determining bonds. Again, I like the concept. I don't think I'll like it in practice. Bonds represent 2 heroes' relationship visualized through quadrants and boxes. Occurring bond fills a quadrant, also called a minor level. Every box that gets filled represents a major level of bond. So what you get are 3 boxes broken up into 4 sections, 4 quadrants. Okay. And if you fill a full box of 4 quadrants, that is a major bond, and every one of the little quadrants is a minor bond. So in every major bond, you have 4 minor bonds. But they're the only way to fill some of those. So when you assist someone in their, the ways that you make bonds, it's specific to, you have to, so this is for each other character. So you literally have this for every character, these quadrants and stuff that you have to keep track of. To me, it feels like a lot of extra stuff.
Yeah, for every other character relationship.
That's what it feels like to me, right?
Yeah.
It's between 2 heroes. So if you're playing with 4 other people, you have these 3 boxes for 4 people. That's like 12 boxes to keep on track of.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing with a big group, like I have a big group that I run, and it's like 6 people. You know, it's like, all right.
Yeah. So there are options here too. When you assist someone in their skill check, you make the roll easier by a number equal to your major levels of bond with them. You may also sacrifice 1 or more minor levels to allow skill check rerolls. So basically, on top of the whole, like, here's your approach score, and here's your skill score or whatever, you can also make that number higher if you're assisting them on a skill check and you have a major bond with them. And with that character that you have a minor bond with, you can sacrifice one of your minor bonds in order to allow them to have a reroll of their 1d6. It makes sense.
It does make sense, but we are now leaving rules light.
Yeah, because we're beyond your here's a roll and here's your modifier.
Yeah.
We are now using 2 modifiers to create a number to roll under. But we're now adding the bond on top of it. This is what I was saying. You have to do this plus this minus this plus this. And I think there's another thing you can even do on top of this too. I don't know if I remember. So like you're definitely like you have a formula now to it's not just like roll and then add a number and you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's literally you have to look at these 2 numbers, roll under that number, and then if someone helps you, the number is actually this instead. Like it works.
Yeah.
Right?
It does.
But
I definitely think it works.
Yeah, but it starts to get, again, I think a lot of this book is super approachable for beginners, and we've gotten to the part where I feel like it's much less approachable now. Because I feel like this is slightly complicated. I don't dislike it as much as like other things. I do think that it could be written in a way that's a little bit easier to understand. I do like the whole like for example, and like they do make it relatively easy ish to understand. So bonds can be increased during play. No, what's up?
Oh, no, just like definitely like this part's written well. It's straightforward. I understand what's going on. It's just I don't know if I don't want this in my game. You know?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think it's a really cool mechanic that I don't want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bonds can be increased during play whenever your hero does any of the following. So it's not like if you sacrifice a minor bond, you're never going to get it back. You can allow people to reroll. It's just going to be harder to keep your major bonds. You could have you could have a major bond with somebody filling your 4 squares of 1, but if you sacrifice a minor bond, you no longer have a major bond because you're missing the quadrant.
Bond, yeah.
So you can accept inconvenience for an ally. So +1 to minor level in the first box. For example, carrying out helpful favors, offering a useful resource to an ally, standing ground to protect them in conflict, or taking on some bother on their behalf. Basically, if you help out a homie, you get a minor bond. And this only applies to the first box because this 3 box is per character. So to get a +2, accept harm or serious risk. So, for example, jumping in front of a warlock's eldritch blow, personally taking on a perilous risk for others, or giving up a crucial opportunity or resource to prioritize an ally, you get a +2 in either the first or second box.
I like that it incentivizes players to work together as a team.
Yes.
I like that.
I like the mechanic. I don't want to keep track of this many fucking little boxes.
Don't want to keep track. I don't want them to have to keep track of it, you know?
Making a permanently life-changing, greatly difficult personal choice or likely fatal sacrifice for others adds +4 minor levels of bond. This is the only way to fill up the third box, which at that point, you're literally just giving them... Why you knew the +4? Why is the fourth box even full of quadrants? It should just be one giant box because you're getting a +4 and you can't do it any other way. So there's no way to get 2 or 3. It's literally 4 or none. I guess you could still sacrifice like minor bonds out of that third box. And then if you get another +4, you can't fill beyond it. Right.
Right.
So there's different things you can do to fill the first box and then to fill the first and second box and to fill the third box. And then you get like 1 point, 2 points, or 4 points for doing those things per character.
You know, someone really is going to enjoy that mechanic.
I think they will. Someone will. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To determine your hero's bonds, choose one hero with whom you have 6 minor levels of bond and choose a second hero with whom you have 3 levels of bond. So you get some bondage right away.
Right.
With at least a couple of the homies.
Yeah, everyone's into bondage just a little bit from the get, you know?
Right from the get. And that's it. It says, and done. A giant thing that says, and done. I like that. I feel like, okay, good, I did something. Cool. That's it. You've created a hero. Your last step is writing it all down in your character sheet. And then there's different ways you can evolve the character. By default, hero creation results in ordinary beginning adventurers, not world-bending warriors. In other tabletop games, this is called low level. However, the guide may choose to award heroes bonus XP, so they may have additional distinctions and capabilities. If the guide wishes the heroes to be experienced at adventuring, they award 15. And if they're veterans, they award 30. So basically, we're going to get into XP, and you buy stuff with your XP. You increase your stats with your XP. There's no reason to hoard it. Literally, like, as soon as you get it, you can use it, and you're constantly receiving it. So here's another really cool piece of art that's kind of dark. It looks kind of like a demon Yoni situation riding a skateboard, which, again, to me, feels non sequitur in our Doom Apocalypse game. Chapter 3, the core rules. So this is a beautiful piece of art on page 65. This feels doomy to me. It's a dark, like, rainy night with a guy in a sword walking up to a massive tree with a huge white snake on it. This is cool. It's a cool piece.
Yeah, this one is maybe one of the most appropriate art pieces so far.
Yeah, this one and that girl in the front with like the ghoul, the ghost thing and like the third eye situation.
Right. Yes.
Those two are really good. Yeah. So summary of rules. So this is again where we move further away from rules light and stuff. So at set time intervals, the Doomsday Clock advances, heralding the end. Skill checks determine the success of risky actions with a chance of interesting success or failure. So let's get mathy. To succeed, roll 1d6 and compare the threshold number equal to skill rank plus approach score, modified, if applicable, by difficulty modifier and or assist bonus.
Know
what I'm saying? Like, again, this is one of those times where I'm like, just talk. Like, I can parse, right?
Yes.
Just talk to me. Just talk to me like a talk.
Yes.
Right? Like, rolls below threshold number succeed and above fail. For ties, choose succeed with consequence or fail with opportunity. I like this. I like this part. I do like this part. I think this is one of the only Necronautilus, which we know we love, was another game where you got a cool thing for tying.
Yes.
Yes. So I do like, not a lot of games, like, but a lot of the 2d6 games don't have a like a DC, basically. They literally have just like a range of numbers or something.
Yeah.
This one actually has a roll under number that you could. It's a roll under 1d6 system, basically, which is interesting when you think about that.
It is. Yeah. We've seen a couple of really interesting roll under systems so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Inviata is a roll under d20, right?
It is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. If you rolled 1 with a rank skill, roll another 1d6. If it's also a 1, your result is flawless. Basically, you can confirm a crit. Right? That's what's happening here. Because a 1 is always a success, basically.
Right.
Unless, I guess, you have literally no modifiers whatsoever and just roll a 1. But this is roll it and you could have a flawless. And you get a flawless... So ties are... Flawless victory. Succeed with a consequence or fail with opportunity unless you get the double 1 situation and which you succeed with opportunity. Or you can sacrifice 3 blood or 3 guts to upgrade a tie or failed result.
Man, there's a lot going on here already.
You can do your guts and blood to get from a fail to a tie, or your guts and blood to get from a tie to a success. Right.
Okay.
Assisting someone with their skill check before they roll, add major levels of bond to your ally's threshold number if you have an applicable skill. You can also sacrifice minor levels anytime to allow them to reroll. This is a breakdown of all the rules. We're actually going to read through of these. So, conflicts or altercations where action sequences matter and is determined by what each character can do. So basically, there's an initiative order that I also think is interesting that I don't want to play. And we'll get to that. Heroes can move up to 2 heights freely. Again, they never explain what heights are, except I guess in the... No, they do. We just missed it, right? It's like 6 feet tall. So you can move 12 feet freely during your turn. Stacking advantages helps...
That's reasonable,
Yeah. So that's when you're in combat. There's actually, when we get to it later, there's a way that you can roll. You can move 5 heights. So you can move like 30 feet away. So
okay.
6 and 5 is 35 feet. Sorry. Stacking advantages helps improve others' skill check threshold number. If attacking others, damage equals the threshold number of the attack plus any bonus from damage items. All right, we're just gonna. So this is a page where it's like the summary of all the rules. This is a rule page right there. So we're gonna get into the actual rules. This is another piece of art I really like. It's like a raven with like an hourglass necklace.
Hourglass necklace. That the hourglass necklace is cool, actually.
Yeah. And the blood and guts page again is a dark red. If blood or guts become 0 or less, so this is straight up how you fucking die, right? If blood or guts becomes 0 or less, the hero still lives, though a subsequent hit will directly damage approach scores. Multiple approach scores can be hit at once. If all approach scores are 0, choose die or live with a randomly rolled life-altering consequence. So this part makes more sense. I mean, the whole concept of this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
In that you can recover blood or guts. Heroes can take breaks to recover blood or guts. Short rest, 1 in-story hour to recover 1d6 blood and 1d6 guts. Or long rest, up to 10 in-story hours to either roll 2d6 plus modifier blood and guts or distribute 7 points of health.
I don't know if I missed this earlier, but when it says plus modifier, does it just let you pick what modifier, or
no? Remember,
what is the modifier?
You created your blood and guts modifier in the hero section. That's right. Remember, you rolled the 4 and the 2.
I remember.
So you can roll 2d6 plus your guts modifier,
which
or
was
whatever.
4.
Yeah, or and then 2d6.
Blood was 4 and guts was 2.
Guts were 2. Yeah. Or you can just take a 7 and split them however you want across your blood and guts. Is how I read it.
I'm rolling for that bitch, you know.
So heroes can only rest in safe places away from enemies, and XP can be spent to improve approach scores, blood, guts, and skills. What did you roll on your 2d6 plus 4 guts?
2d6 plus 4 guts. We got 9.
Okay, that's decent. And then how many guts you got? Plus 2.
9.
Oh damn, son. There you go. Okay, so rules. So I think we're going to get to this later, but to talk about this right now, and I think they give an example later that I'll probably repeat later. So basically, to explain the blood and guts a little bit better, you got blood, which is your body, and you got guts, which is like your mind, which you could have called it blood and brains, I guess, or guts and brain, or I don't know. I don't see how guts are your mind.
When you say like, hey, can you do? You know, if you were gutsy in a situation,
also, yeah. So it's not your insides. It's your will, kind of. Yeah. So basically, let's say you have 5 blood and 5 guts, right? And you take 5 damage to your blood and 5 damage to your guts, and now you're at 0 for both, right? And you have a +1, and your approach scores again are creative and concerted and all of those, right? You have 3. Say you have 1 and 1, 2 and 1, and 3 in the other for a total of 5 points, right? So let's say you take 5 blood, you're down to 0, right? You take 5 guts, you're down to 0. If you take another whole 5 damage, that's going to knock your 1 off of your 1 score, the 2 off your 2nd score, and the 3 off your 3rd score, because you got to reduce 5 damage. And now your blood is at 0, your guts at 0, and all 3 of your approach scores at 0. You done did a dead.
That was a lot.
Kind of, but it makes sense, especially if it's on your paper.
It does make sense. You know, it's not more complicated than 5e.
No.
But
you can take a total amount of damage equal to your blood plus your guts plus the number of all 3 of your approach scores.
Right, all your approach scores, yeah.
So again, if you have 5 blood,
actual functional HP.
If you have 5 blood, 5 guts, and then 1, 2, and 3 for your scores, you have a total of 15 damage you can take before you're completely dead. Not true, because if you take a bunch of blood damage and it's at 0, if you take more blood damage, your guts can be fucking 1,000, but it'll still hit your approach scores.
Right, yeah. Because blood's going to be combat every time, and guts is only going to be guts is essentially social.
Social and mind, yeah. So you can still take guts damage in combat, but it's like attacking your mind.
Right, it's just mental attacks. Yeah.
All right, so skill checks. right? Rules help provide a consistent and rewarding experience for everyone. However, custom rulings can also create more of a fulfilling experience. Every game of Ark is your own. The standard caveat of play by the rules, but if you want to do something different, go for it. It's 5e's cop out.
Everyone's cop out.
Heroes in Ark move the story forward. We talked about that already. Players, whenever you attempt a risky action with a chance for an interesting success or failure, you may be asked to make a skill check, declaring a skill and approach based on the intended outcome. You must narrow how the approach applies to the skill. For example, I tried to deduce secret art motifs from the markings on the altar is ideal. I observed creatively is not. So you're not taking your skill and your approach and saying I just do those two things. You're supposed to narrate how those things apply. So don't, again, this is one of those, a lot of these newer, you can't lump everything into OSR. I think a lot of what we look at is more rules light. Because to me, OSR has kind of mutated from retro clones into any new rules like game calls itself OSR. And I don't know if that's...
I've noticed that.
I don't know if the definition has mutated into that or people are just lumping it in incorrectly.
I think they're just lumping it incorrectly. So I think even internally I do it sometimes where I'm just like, oh, that's OSR. But like, it's not. Yeah. It's not like a retro clone or anything.
No, it's rules light. It's rules light. So you must... So it actually gives you a cool table of the 5 types of skills on the left: knowledge, social, physical, pragmatic, and prowess, and the 3 approaches across the top: creative, careful, and concerted. So you can literally kind of say like, okay, I have pragmatic and I have concerted. So what can I do with pragmatic and concerted? Rush, withstand, and do brute force.
That is really cool. I like this little chart. It's a very functional little chart, It's a very functional little
chart. So for example, let's take physical and careful, optimize, safeguard, and follow best practices. So you can think of what you want to do, and this gives you a way to narrate it appropriate for the skills and approach that you're trying to add together, which is really good. I think this is a great little chart to use.
Yeah, there's like, I know I've been slightly critical of this game so far, but it's not that there's anything about it that's bad. I think this is not really the game for me. Like
I don't think we're being critical. I think we're reading it, and I don't think we're being overly critical of this by any stretch of the imagination. Again, I think you said, anyone can be a critic, and that's all right. This is our podcast, but I do agree with you. I don't think there's any part of this that objectively is bad by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's a good game. It's a really good game. Yeah. I don't think this is the game for me, but I would definitely be like, hey, like this is a great game for people to play,
Yeah. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't play this game, especially as written. I also think it very much depends on the people you're playing with too.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it doesn't every game though.
Yeah. But I mean, like, there's people that wouldn't want to play the Dark Kingdoms, but are down for 5e. So it's kind of like, and it also depends on the type of experience you want to be having, right? Right. For me, if I'm playing Doom, like Morkborg is my game of Doom. But again, even as I said previously with the bonds, I think it's a really, really incredibly clever way to get players to interact with each other in a party and encourage and help each other. It's not how I would want to do that. I don't want to keep track of that many boxes, but is it an incredibly clever mechanic? Yes. So I agree with you completely.
Totally.
I think objectively, there's nothing that in this game that I'm like, there's very few things in this game that I'm like, I don't like this part. But there's a couple of things in the game where I'm like, objectively, this is really good. Subjectively, not for me.
Not for me. I agree with you completely. Totally.
I think the only thing where I'm like, I don't like this is the concept of like 5 real world minutes without the caveat of.
But I mean, admittedly, that's the only thing so far that we've been like, oh, I don't really like this. Everything else is like, this is good.
It also, the concept of losing 5 minutes doesn't make sense. I just wish there was a caveat of like, or just reduce your time by 5 minutes and keep going.
Yeah.
So even that's not bad. So no. But again, I agree with you 100%. There's nothing bad in this game at all. I think it's really, really good and really, really interesting. I think there's a lot of things in here where I'm just like, oh, this is a really cool way that I haven't seen it done like this before, mechanically. But as you said, not necessarily for me, for us. So the sum of your skill ranks and approach score determine the threshold number. We already know that. Higher threshold number, the better. The difficulty modifier. Before you roll, the threshold number may be modified by the guide reflecting the difficulty or favorability of your action. +1 is easy, +0 is difficult, -1 is very difficult, -2 is staggeringly difficult, and -3 is impossibly difficult. So numbers wise, what we're talking about now in our algorithm of rolling 1d6.
Right.
Okay. You have to figure out your threshold number, okay, by looking at your approach score and skill. Okay. Then you have to determine if someone is assisting you, if they're giving you a major bond. Okay. Then the guide has to tell you if they are doing a difficulty modifier onto your roll.
Okay.
Then you have to roll your dice.
So, actually, that doesn't seem terrible to me. And here's my argument for why. Because the first part of that is all player facing. Players going to figure out what their approach score and what their skill is, and if their player is helping them. So they're going to have to figure out that number. I don't have to, as the guide, because I'm for the forever GM. I don't have to do that. I only have to tell them like, okay, cool, but this task is an impossibly hard task, so it's a -3. So
my only problem with that is in that scenario, you have to figure out a number, and then you have to talk to somebody else to figure out if they're going to change your number, and then the guide has to tell you if they're going to change your number, and then you need to roll. Like, I can imagine if it's a series of rolls. Imagine going around a table of 5e, and when before you roll your d20, you have to calculate the number you need to roll under.
That's really all you have to say.
You have to calculate the number. No, you got to calculate the number you need to roll under based on your own stats. You need to ask someone if they're helping you so you can change that number. Then you need to ask the guide if they're reducing that number. Then you have to roll your dice. In D&D now, all you have to do is roll one dice and add one number to it. You know what I mean?
Fair.
And the guide tells you. So, like, I can imagine. I mean, also, when we get to initiative too, there's a lot of time that goes into that too. I can't, especially when time is of the essence in a game that has a literal clock. That's a lot of talking amongst people to get to roll 1d6. You know what I mean?
That is a really, really good point. Very good point.
We have not played this, so we don't know how quickly it could just be like,
I think that this still is very simple because like the answers to most of these are going to be 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
0, 1, 2, 3.
I don't necessarily think it's not simple. I feel like it's a little bit time consuming to have this many modifiers to roll. And I don't even know if this is all of them. I think this is the final one, the difficulty one. I think there's an option to have, is it 3 modifiers on your roll? Plus there's advantage and stuff like that too. So you have to create your threshold number again. You have to get help. You have to get a difficulty number. Then you have to roll after you add all that together to see what's up and what's down. So, but we'll keep going. Oh yeah, the assistance. Before the roll is made, the other player may declare if they'd like to assist in the skill check. The assisting hero must have a relevant, helpful skill in the situation. It's kind of like I know DMs in 5e who say you can only do the help action if you're proficient in that skill, which I like. It's just like, okay, I have a 0 in lockpicking, but I can help with the lockpicking, right? It's like, sure, no,
I'm gonna stand behind him and cheer him on.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him the 1,000 years of death and then just see if that helps. If the assisting hero does not have an applicable skill, they cannot exist. I like that. That's great.
Yeah.
In summary, the threshold number is equal to the sum of the hero's ranks in the relevant skill, plus their chosen approach score, plus a difficulty modifier set by the guide, plus the major levels of bond with an assisting hero. And then roll a d6. So it's literally four modifiers: your skill, your approach, your difficulty modifier, and I guess this makes it a little bit easier because in my head I went figure out the threshold number and then change it versus just being like, so my skill is 2 and my approach is 3,
right?
And then my difficulty modifier is +1 because it's really easy, and then someone's helping me, so that's a +2. So it's literally like a +8, I can't fail or even tie. There's no point in even rolling. You know what I mean?
Yes.
At that point. So roll and out.
And not that it's as complicated, but it a little bit reminds me of Shadowrun, because you add like it's like fucking 3 numbers versus 3 numbers together. It's
I've never played Shadowrun, and I feel like I wouldn't want to. And a lot of people I've played with said that the Shadowrun world is amazing, and the system is just garbage.
It's one of my favorite worlds ever, and it's one of my least favorite systems ever. We should review it.
A different system. Yeah, let's fucking do it. We are actually going to review Gamma World 40 before Eric plays it. Maybe even have him on to talk about it with us. We'll just pop up a third window and he'll go through it with us. Yeah, I'm going to be really fun. So roll an outcome. Player, once the threshold number is known, roll 1d6 to determine outcome. If the roll is under the threshold number, it's a pure success. You succeed with no consequence. Flawless success, we talked about. You roll a 1 and then you roll another 1. You get a success with opportunity. If the roll is equal to the threshold number, you succeed with a consequence. So this is the part where we actually get into the consequences of the ties, which I really like. You succeed with a consequence. So that could be delay or inefficiency, such as taking so long that the guards are rounding the corner. Permanent or temporary loss of resource, for example, having weapons stuck in an enemy's armor. So it's like you strike and do damage, but your weapon is stuck. You know, so you succeed, but there's a consequence. We know what consequences work. It's literally how Victory Basic works. You succeed on your roll, but you know, and then you fail with opportunity. So you can do risk reduction, such as de-escalating tensions in the negotiation. You risk redirection, like someone putting someone on the spot, gaining trust or respect, for example, impressing the Elven Queen. So you might try to do a fancy dance in front of the Elven Queen with your coordination and creativity, right? But you fail. But you fail with an opportunity. And although you might have done the dance beautifully, but on the last move you twist your ankle and fall down. Yeah. Right?
But you trip and hit your face and embarrass yourself.
But the Elven Queen is like, you know what? You fucking tried. And not only did you try, you did a pretty dang good job. You earned my respect, even though you fucked it up. Oh, you're
so sweet. You really tried. Yeah. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Here's a hard candy. Yeah. So that's to me, that's a concept of like you fail, but there's an opportunity. Basically, it's like you fail, but like you get a little something from it. And that's the core rules of the game. And then there is the option to upgrade the outcome. So you may sacrifice 3 blood or 3 guts, whichever is situationally appropriate, and upgrade a non-successful skill check. A tie rolled to a pure success or a fail rolled to a tie, basically, by sacrificing 3 guts and 3 bloods and 3 crips.
Okay, cool.
You can rest to recover your blood and guts in Chapter 3. You can act as a group. If the heroes wish to tackle tasks as a group, scouring the unknown woods for supplies, the guide can ask everyone to make individual skill checks. Different approaches and skills may be used so long as they are relevant. If more than half the players succeed, the task is an overall success. However, each failed check may incur an complication. I don't understand how that's not just regularly doing it. I guess it's just like if more than half, then like everyone gets it, but there's consequences. How is that different than like, you know, more than half of you succeed, but a bunch of you succeed with consequences? So, okay, so conflict is the part where like I kind of get lost because so it's not even get lost. This is the part where I'm like, it's neat, but I don't know if I like this. So conflicts are unique situations. Basically, it says it's not always physical. You could have conflicts beyond just like straight up fighting people, you know. During a conflict, anyone can make a difference and reactions shift on the fly. Every action can have immediate effect. And there are turns and rounds. In conflict, everyone gets 1 turn in a round representing their opportunity to act and affect the situation. Rounds begin when players decide what they do. When does the conflict end? When it feels like you're done, when you've killed all the enemies or you've succeeded in like de-escalating the situation. Yeah. But again, this is a really good, these boxes that she does with the explainers, I think does a really good job of explaining, especially like I said, they're extremely beginner friendly. Actions you can take. You can stand your ground. Anyone attacking you or allies within a 2 height radius, basically like shortish range, closest range, receives a -1 to their attack's threshold number. You may gain a minor level of bond with an ally with every attack you foil this way, up to the first major level of bond. So basically, if you stand your ground and protect your ally next to you, and then whatever's trying to attack fails, whether it's because of your -1 or not, you can get a minor bond with that person.
That's cool.
Which is kind of cool. Yeah. You can harm others, attack an enemy with a relevant skill check, physique or weaponry to harm blood, insight or impose to harm guts. Get up in them guts is basically imposingly.
Okay, y'all, that's our show. I'm getting the fuck out of here now. I like this.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Harm other is very conceptual, and it's not necessarily like, yeah, you swing a sword, but it is also that you swing a sword. You know,
it could be. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Impose, like, it insult your mother, you know, and harm your guts, you know.
Yeah. So difficulty modifiers may
fuck you, bro. Fuck you. You know, how about that?
Someone was going to make the joke at some point today. Difficulty modifiers may apply if the situation is stacked against you, or if the attack is done with inadequate tools. For example, using weaponry but not having a weapon is hard. So you might.
Oh, that's pretty funny, honestly.
These hands are deadly weapons. No, they're not.
Dude, honestly,
sorry.
like, that's hilarious. That's the line in the book, because it's a really funny example. You know?
Yeah. You can try attacking with a skill other than those listed above, but it should only be doable if the skill is relevant, obviously. Defense items reduce the attack threshold number by their bonus rating. A +2 armor, for example, reduces threshold number by 2. So more stuff that needs to be added and subtracted from the number.
Yeah, there is a lot.
As of this point, there's 5 modifiers to a 1d6.
Is that that's including armor, right? Yeah. So
with the armor added, yep. So damage dealt in a successful attack is equal to threshold number plus damage item bonus. Thus, if a hero succeeds at a threshold number 4 attack with a +2 weapon, the total damage is 6, which is fine. So the threshold number that you create to hit is the damage you do. I'm fine with that. I like that. It's clean.
Totally fine with that.
You don't have to create another number. But also, no, because a higher threshold number is better. So the higher you can get the number,
right,
the more you can succeed. You can bump that number up to like 8, realistically.
Yeah, you can.
And you will always succeed. You're basically, if you get the number above 6, you might as well just be like, that's the damage you take, because you can't, unless they have armor. You know what I mean? Bad guys could have armor too. Non-harmful actions. Yeah. Create an advantage. Advantages give bonus to threshold number of subsequent skill checks by allies. See, this is what I'm talking about in writing the way I write. I would not say to you advantages give bonuses of subsequent skill checks. Like, I would, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, yes. I would say that in a more, we've talked about this multiple times. Like, you should write rules the way that you talk, because that's going to be the way that people hear them.
It's one of those, like, it's on that list of fucking rules that I have on the bottom of my like Lost Adams document, where I'm just like, you have to write how people talk, you know?
We need to do another session where we do some incursion in Lost Adams work, man. Like, I went through Lost Adams again the other day, and I was just like, I have questions.
I'm about
to
like, change so much of it. So
I mean, there's things that need to change, but the seed of what you got going on is fucking. I would play the shit out of that. So let's get working on that sometime. I'm off a lot for the next week. Let's hook up.
I'm not. So
sucks to suck. Most of the time, you'll need to succeed at a skill check to create an advantage. For example, distracting an enemy with guile, grappling an opponent with physique, or spotting and shouting, the best ways of hitting an enemy through tactics. I really like that. I feel like this conflict situation does not discourage not doing physical harm, right? So in 5e, I feel like players feel like if they don't do damage on a turn, that they wasted a turn. They've wasted
the turn. Yeah, but that's because that's how, I mean, that's how 5e is written. This is definitely, this encourages you, like, hey, in a damage turn, like, or in combat, you don't only have to attack, like, you can use your skill. You have all these cool skills. You built this character concept. apply it.
Not only that, when we get to the initiative, this is more applicable, even if I'm not a super huge fan of the way the initiative works.
Is really interesting. I'm actually looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those things where it's like, it's interesting. I don't know if it's for me. It's kind of like, it reminds me of Troika Initiative, and we'll get there, but it reminds me of the stack.
Yeah.
So if you succeeded the skill check, you improve your ally's threshold number by the skill ranks used. For example, if you have 2 ranks in Guile and deceive an enemy into thinking you are the real threat, allies may get +2 to attack the threshold. Interesting, clean, I like it. Right. I think my only big beef with the rules right now is just how many numbers you have to add together to get to the threshold number.
A lot of numbers. Like, I know that they're all very small numbers, and that's great. Right. That they're all small numbers, but it's still a lot of numbers. And again, the problem is not the problem is not the very simple math. The problem is the number of different places you have to pull those numbers from. You know what I mean? Because you can't just look at your own sheet and do that, right? You have to look at your sheet for your skills. You have to ask if someone's helping you, so then someone else has to do in it. The guide has to give you their potential difficulty bonus or subtraction. Right.
Also has to then tell you if they have armor. That's another one.
Right.
And now there's a possibility that because someone gave you advantage earlier, there's a 6 number you can add to it because you get a plus.
But advantage is only on skill checks, right?
No, because look, if someone helps you, if you have 2 ranks in Guile and deceive an enemy into thinking you are the real threat, allies may get a +2 to attack's threshold number.
Yeah, but
the ally can help you on your next thing. On their turn, and then also someone can use a major bond. That's how I read it.
So is attacking an enemy a skill check?
Yes, we went over that. It's a harmful action. It's like using physique and weaponry to hard blood. Yeah.
I know harmful action was still technically a skill check, because right here on what does it say about advantage? It says advantages give bonus to threshold for subsequent skill checks specifically. So you don't have to do advantages and armor if it's harmful action, unless harmful action is also considered a
attack an enemy with a relevant skill check.
It is relevant skill check. Okay. Yeah.
Advantages from different allies may stack and apply to more than one opponent. If a hero throws sticky goo to restrain multiple enemies, for example, attacks targeting any of them get a threshold number bonus. Enemies may attempt to remove advantage on their turn. So that's kind of cool. You could literally stack up all of your bonuses for a whole fucking thing, and then have your last guy be like, it's like a Claymore situation.
That is pretty cool.
But yeah, I do like it. A lot of small
numbers, though. Lot of numbers.
Again, it's not even the number of numbers. It's the number of different people that have to be involved in one person's turn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Especially because it really incentivizes you to help other people. So there's probably going to be a bond action or something like that almost every turn.
You could theoretically, including yourself, have 4 different people affecting the number that you need to roll. Because you could have yourself, you can have your bond person, you have the GM, and you can have someone who won a previous action granted you advantage or something. So that's 4 people's involved in your one turn.
A lot going on.
It's a lot. But again, it really depends on the rationale for the game, because you really have to pull yourself out of the 5e mindset of like combat has to move and this and that, because when we get to the initiative, it's not a moving situation. It's literally a group conversation. So it could, again, this is one of those games where like I really need to play at least a one shot of it to be like, okay, no, like it's a lot cleaner than it sounds, especially once you get used to it, is what it could be. You know what I mean? So
yeah, very much agree.
Creating advantages without skill checks. If your action is basic or already likely to succeed, like stringing tripwire away from the scuffle, you create advantage without a skill check. Okay. Advantages impairing opponent's skills or defensive give a +1. Advantages preventing or nullifying opponent's skills or defensive give a +2. So interesting way you can do that. More non-harmful actions. You can assist someone. Adding your major level bond. We've talked about that. You can do something else. You may include attempting to convince an enemy to stand down, performing a ritual while the conflict is ongoing, or taking time to carefully study the enemy. A skill check may apply. You may immediately sacrifice minor levels of bond with another hero to allow a skill check reroll. This does not use up an action. So basically, as a reaction for somebody else, not only can you give them a bonus with your major bonds, you can give them a reroll with a minor bond, which is cool. And you get them back pretty, it seems pretty relatively if you...
Yeah, so it's fast. So the economy's fast on it.
Yeah, one of the things that Sursa talks about a bunch, and that I absorb like 10% of what he says into me, and like think about the other 90%. Part of the 10% that I feel is like in me now is that your game mechanics should reinforce the game you want to play.
I agree.
Right? Like if the game has a specific theme and vibe and wants you to do something, the mechanics should reinforce those themes, vibes, and get you to that point. Right? So like 5e does not do that. If 5e, what it reinforces is combat, and that you have to do damage every turn or you fail.
It's the worst combat, though.
So, no, I think the combat's fine. It's just stop trying to be a role-playing game, too. It's like Destiny. Be PvP or PvE. Pick one. You can't be both.
Obviously a PvE game, so...
No, it's a PvP game. But, like, so you... when in this game, I feel like this whole concept of as a group you're trying to stop the apocalypse is reinforced over and over and over again in group play. Help your allies, assist them do this, create bonds with them by doing this and this and this. I love how it like has this feedback loop of like positive reinforcement for your group in order to stop this thing together. So I really love that about the game. So you can also use spells or techniques. You perform a spell or technique every time you are attacked before your turn. You must succeed at a random 1d6 roll to maintain concentration. Okay. The threshold number starts at 6 and is reduced by 1 with each subsequent attack. Okay, so it gets harder every time you get attacked to maintain concentration, which it should.
I like that. That's cool. It's very clean. Logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, on the first attack, no, we get it. Right. Like with skill checks.
Sorry. You're like, oh yeah, no, we understand.
Yeah, like with skill checks, if you roll above the threshold number, you fail. You cannot perform the spell or technique, though no instance is consumed. So basically, if you fail to cast a spell, you still have the spell, is what it feels like. It's not very mean. Every attack, even if it misses, incurs this roll. Interesting. So even if something attacks you, you got to roll for concentration regardless, because even if it missed you, it still attacked you.
You mean you're still having to concentrate while something's swinging a sword at you? So yeah,
absolutely. I do like that. Oh, the other option is moving far. We talked about this before. So you can move up to 5 additional heights for a total of 7 heights. If you succeed on a skill check, like with acrobatics or coordination to move. Alternatively, you can opt to move without the skill check, but all enemies within 2 heights can roll an attack. So basically, you do a skill check to move 7 heights away, which is roughly like 40 feet, 42 feet.
35. 40, or something like that.
No, it's 2 additional. You can do 2 already on a move. You can do 5 additional. Yeah. So, and if you succeed on a skill check, you just do that. You bounce. But if you choose not to do the skill check, you can bounce, but basically everyone gets opportunity attacks.
That's really cool. I really like that a lot. I like opportunity attacks, but I like that there's like, oh no, if you're super acrobatic, you can roll acrobatic and you can dodge all these. It's like, that's fucking cool, man. Like that's very much like, I mean, that's another like reinforcing your character. You know, like I remember my character is like a circus person. You know, and then they'd be a circus person. So for me,
and you got acrobatics and coordination, dude. You got like a +4 without even doing it. Yeah. So this feels like a disengaged dash kind of option all the time for everybody, which is cool. Yeah. So, okay, we're getting into initiative category now. I think we're almost done with the rules and we are getting close to 11 o'clock. So we're probably going to run to like 11:30 if that's cool with you. So we can do all the things. But I feel like we can't not do the initiative stuff. So
I'm taking a nap after this. Let me tell you, bro.
Me too. I'm taking a bed. It's my bedtime. It's way past my bedtime. Yeah. Initiative category. Every round, characters act in a sequence. I'll have to step away for a minute or two here in just a little bit. When my groceries
second bathroom break.
Every round, characters act in a sequence based on intent. This is called initiative category. Multiple characters can act in the same category once everyone in that group has acted. The next takes place. So you literally break it down into first, second, third, fourth, and last categories. And this is good guys and bad guys in each category act, and then you move to the next one. So there is no, and good guys go first. It reminds me of kind of Shadow the Demon Lord in the whole like quick action, slow action, and then good guys go first, then bad guys kind of concept. And then you just break it down to whoever the fuck wants to go first within that. Which I like. It's interesting. So in the first category, it's characters and creatures standing ground. Okay. In the second category,
action, you can use you get +1 minor bond. Is that what they refer to as? Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you succeed, but you also give a +1 to the threshold number by helping the ally. Right. Second, those taking non-harmful actions. Okay.
Gotcha.
Third is those attacking or harming others. Fourth is those using a spell or technique. And last is those moving far. So it's literally every type of action you can take broken down. And then in each level of those things, it's good guys and then bad guys before you move to the next level. The next part is the interesting part. Before every round begins, everyone has the opportunity to strategize and decide who goes in which initiative category and how to sequence heroes within each. Once you've decided as a party, the guide or designated player can begin calling out each category. During the round, players can change their plan. Yeah, you're not stuck to that, but you can't do a thing for an initiative round that's already passed. So you can't you can't be in the third round.
Only going forward.
No. You can't do you can't be in the third round and then go back to standing your ground. You can't. You can only do what's in the third round or spells and techniques or move far away. Hero actions always resolve before non-hero actions unless the party was taken by surprise. So this is another part of the thing where I'm talking about clearly this game is not designed for quick conflicts because you have a million numbers to add.
There's so much going on.
And you literally, as a group, before every round of combat, sit down, decide what everybody is doing, lump themselves into categories, and then go. So it feels like every round is like a group reset. You're huddling back. This feels like football is what it feels like to me. You know what this feels like? It feels like football. Between every round, you huddle up, decide what everybody is doing, and then you go out there and you do those things. And as a QB, you do have your checkdowns, right? I check my first receiver, covered. Check my second receiver, covered. Check my third receiver. That's what I'm going for. This is what this feels like to me, is that you literally huddle up. This is what it feels like to me. You huddle up between every round. So clearly it is not designed for speedy conflict resolution.
No, it's definitely not.
No. So you like if you completely pull out like 5e from your brain and pretend you've never played a tabletop.
Completely pull out.
Yeah. If you completely take 5e out of the equation, the whole concept of like combat has to be fast and this and that, and literally just take this game at face value, conflicts, which generally will happen in Omen resolution, right, are like a whole fucking thing. It's a whole song and dance, like a play you're putting on like a scene, right? And it's especially not designed to be quick, and that's fine. What's kind of cool about that is with all the moves that you can do, you can really stack and build tactics together as a group.
Yeah, and again, you absolutely could.
And again, that is back in that feedback loop of what this game feels like it's designed to do, which is work as a team. So I think
you can make this a cool like scene by scene play. Like
absolutely.
Have them go through the initiative order, have them resolve or not resolve, and then at the very end, the guide goes in that round like so and stood ground and over them and left so and they did an attack while so and so was casting a spell. Like you can make this cool cinematic.
And I love doing that in 5th edition. I think a lot more people need to do that, and that's the narrative transitions. So as you're moving to the next person, like rehash the recent action, and that's exactly what you just said. Someone can narratively rehash the entire scene, and everyone will be like, man, that was fucking cool. All right, what are we doing on the next one? You know what I mean? So my only problem again with that is you create a scenario where conflict does not feel like it's supposed to be resolved quickly in a game that has a literal timer. You know?
Damn. Yeah, that is a really good point.
So that's my only problem with that.
I keep forgetting that there's like a literal timer outside of
actual. Yeah.
You're actually on the fucking clock. So
actually on the clock.
So do you even want to get in conflict? You know, you just want to avoid it almost all the time.
Or resolve it as quickly as you can because you're on the clock. So it could feed into making make the moves you think will resolve the conflict.
Gotta decide now. Yeah.
Yeah. No fucking around because the clock don't stop unless you're taking a long rest, and then it'll stop for 5 minutes. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. I like this concept, and I like again how the mechanics seem to feed into this concept. Nothing in the way, and there's parts in the upper part where I'm like, but then you read a little bit later and you're like, okay, that makes sense. And then you get to this part and you're like, okay, a lot of this makes a lot of sense now. And this is super, at least as far as I've seen the game so far mechanically, is super unique. Unique.
Absolutely.
I'm still, I really want to run this or like play this at some point because in my head, I'm like, this is really fucking cool and really fucking interesting. It definitely makes you think about games in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's for me. I'm still in that part in my head. Really cool piece of art. Life, death, and
another background.
Yeah. So life, death, and fallen heroes. When blood and guts is reduced to 0 or less, the hero still stands. Though the next damage to that stat is applied to approach scores instead. Multiple approach scores may be damaged at once. All approach scores become 0. So this is the example that I was talking about earlier. Say a hero has +2 creative, +1 careful, and 0 concerted. If their blood is taken down below 0 in one hit, they can still act and move, but if their blood is hit again with at least 3 damage, their approach scores are depleted and they fall. So if your blood score is reduced to 0, give me 1 second.
So I'm gonna keep going. So essentially, if your blood's reduced 0, you take stat damage, which I really like, and I'm seeing more of, and I think it is an interesting way, because if you stay up and you've taken stat damage, you now are worse at doing things, which I feel like is very appropriate for injury. Let's see. If your hero falls, you have the option of letting them live or die. If you choose life, your hero becomes incapacitated and unconscious, but fully revives after 5, once again, real-time minutes, and 1 hour in story. Not but 1 hour in story. You restore all of your hero's approach scores to their last healthy value. And then you roll a 1. There's a nice little D6 here chart for consequences. Ryan, why don't you roll me a D6, buddy?
I got that. I got 3 clicks from a dice roll at all times. D6, that's a 3. Ooh, yeah.
Gains an unnerving presence. Children, animals flee from them. So it's like unnerving
it's
presence.
Like me now.
You've been past death, and you came back, and now you're all grim and you're fucked up, and babies are afraid of you, and so are dogs. So
yeah. I mean, again, that's not much different than real life. So, so that's if you choose to not die, which is interesting. You can just choose to not die.
You can choose to not die. And you know what? I think for this game is not about being super mechanical. This is a cinematic adventure with you and your hero friends, and I am super okay with that in this system.
I think what you just said is what is true and makes sense. This is a cinematic adventure because if you look at the way that the initiative order works, it looks to me, and obviously it's designed to be a scene. Yes. Every round is this scene that everyone plots and then acts together, So yeah, it does feel very cinematic, which is really interesting. So yeah, I mean, but the game is also not very punishing to me. If you just look at not the mechanics necessarily, but just the vibe of this game. Yeah. This is like if have you ever seen that meme of those twins where the one is like all dressed in black and the other one is in like pinks and rainbows and shit. And it's like they're two sisters.
Yeah. I kind of, I get the concept at least.
This is Merkborg to me.
Yes.
Yeah, Merkborg's all about death and murder and blood and guts and mutilation and the apocalypse. And this is about teamwork and moving on and moving forward and like choosing whether you can die or not. And the apocalypse, you know. This feels like this feels like the happy little sibling of Merkborg, but came from the same parent, obviously the same. Yeah. So if you choose death, every other hero gains experience points equal to thrice their minor levels of bond with the fallen hero. The Doomsday Clock consumes 1 moment, and you create a new hero.
And you can have a really epic moment with this. You could be like, like fucking, I went down and I'm out. You know, they died in this moment. You're like, no.
Yeah, I do like it and it really is dependent because whether you choose to live or die could really, really be dependent on how it happened. You know? What happens to inventory? It's on your body. People can loot the shit out of you, but you lose your spells and techniques because that makes sense and they shouldn't be in inventory anyway. That's one thing I don't like. Rest and recovery. You can only do it around, you can't rest around enemies, and a short rest is 2 real-time minutes and 1 hour in story, and you recover 1d6 blood and 1d6 guts, and a long rest we've talked about. 5 real-time minutes.
In combat, y'all.
Yeah. 5 real-time minutes, 10 in-story hours, and then you get your 2d6 plus modifier for your blood and guts. If you reroll, roll both stats, obviously. If you do not reroll, you just get 7. So, evolving your hero. I think we're almost done. I think evolving is the last thing before we get to chapter 4, which I don't think we're going to go through too much. XP represents growing adventure expertise. Players gain 3 XP each per real-time hour for games with 1 to 3 sessions, and 12 XP each per session for longer campaigns. Hourly XP is awarded immediately. So you can literally like, the clock hits the top of the hour, you get 3 XP, and you can go, boom, I've raised the score.
You almost want like multiple alarms or timers going when you're playing.
Oh, I would definitely have like an actual giant ticking analog clock that had like, you know, little things. Why don't we take a real quick like 2-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about spending XP to evolve our characters. So we'll be back in just a moment, everybody. Okay, and we are back. And we are talking about spending XP to evolve your character. So we just talked about that you get XP at the top of every hour or specific moments, and you get it right away. You don't wait till the end of the session, right? So when you get it, you can immediately evolve your character. And I like this. This is an interesting concept here. So you can unspent XP does not expire. So if you don't use it on that hour, you can continue to build it. Increasing an approach score by 1 costs 3 times its next level of XP. So if you have 1, it's 3 XP to get to 2. It's 6 XP to get to 3. It's 9 XP to get to, well, you can't.
Well, it says increasing by
its next value.
Its next value.
So to get from 1 to 2, it's 6.
It's 6.
From 2 to 3, it's 9. Yeah. That's how. That's right. So increasing a skill rank. Yeah, that's how math works. You just put the numbers together and then add it all up. So increasing a skill rank by 1 costs 2 times its next value. So 1 to 2 is 4. 2 to 3 is 6. Increasing a modifier for blood and guts by 1 costs its new value XP. So if your modifier is a 4, it costs 5. If it's a 5, it costs 6 to go up, etc. I like that. Cool. I like how it's, because in order, those are kind of your most important numbers. Totally. And it's harder, you know, the more important that number is. Bonds will increase your hero interaction. We've already talked about that. Again, this should be a link to this section, chapter 2, step 6. It's not. So
look at this way more appropriate art we have on the next 3 pages.
Man. Yeah. You know? The next 3 pages, this like very somber colors, a lot of grays and blues and blacks, with this very sad looking woman in this giant picture of a raven. Like, that's Doom, baby.
There we go. I'm feeling like the world's about to end now.
Yeah. Ooh, and another chapter 4, spells and techniques. What more do we need to know than we've already talked about when using spells and techniques?
I just want to point out, like, for spells, there are rituals that go along with them that have a cost, and they're like, some of them are like really funny. Like there is one, let me find it right now.
Well, let's get to that. Let's get to that. When you cast spells and techniques, you can do casting the base version immediately applies its effect, consuming 1 instance. Enhanced versions, while significantly more powerful, require a skill check. In many cases, a reduction of guts. You cannot sacrifice more guts than you currently have. If you succeed, an instance is consumed. If you fail, nothing happens. Additionally, you cannot perform the same spell again for 15 real-time minutes. I mean, I'm starting to not dislike the real-time minutes as much.
It's very consistent.
I still think the concept, especially as a group, should be marked as when it's everybody at the same time. Just take 5 minutes off your clock. Don't necessarily sit there for 5 minutes doing fucking nothing. That's the only part I really dislike. Otherwise, I don't mind, because it's an actual clock, to eat up time on the clock to do things like rest and stuff like that, because it wouldn't make sense. Like, you spent 10 real time hours in game, but the time doesn't move forward at all because you just decided to do it quickly. I do like it. So it's just I think that my little beef with that is becomes smaller and less consequential outside of just like a little tiny pet peeve in my own head.
Yeah.
The more that concept comes back like this. So, spells and techniques can be replenished even if you have spent every instance. All instances are restored at the end of a long rest. If a related ritual is performed by then, failure to do so simply means you do not refresh. Note, you only can gain as many instances as your maximum. It's possible to obtain additional instances, learn new spells and techniques, or even create custom ones. Your hero should have access to the source that can teach them, such as spellbook, mana, or a mentor. Every 15 real-time minutes, you can roll a special skill check with a threshold number equal to Arcana or Focus, and not an approach. The number of successes you need for a new spell or technique is equal to its complexity, an estimate of how powerful it is. From 1 to 4, lowly but useful is 1, 2 is highly useful in day-to-day, 3 is critical and can turn the tide in most situations, and 4 affects the entire world. Interesting. So you have to get every 15 minutes.
It's a little like Acid Mages of the Infinite Towers magic.
Ooh, kind of. Yeah. Every 15 minutes you roll this check and you have to get a number of successes. So to get to 4, it's minimum an hour. If you succeed on every roll.
Yes, if you succeed on every roll.
Yeah. In this chapter, the rating is listed next to the spell or technique with daggers. 1 to 4. List of spells. Didn't we go through the list? Or these are just the enhanced versions? Okay.
They're just there. I really like that they're like, all of these have a cost to them, called a ritual. And I think that they're so funny. And my favorite one, I'm skipping right to it, is on page 91. It's called Secret Door.
Right now. It's 2 pages from now. You can't wait. We can't wait. 2 pages. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Bind weapon. It's got 2 daggers next to it. You summon a +2 weapon. Its specific nature is up to your imagination. Flaming swords are nice. The weapon can neither be destroyed nor disarmed. The enhanced version requires 5 guts plus Arcana, and the effect summons a +5 weapon. That's a lot. Oh, and there is a ritual here.
There is.
Yeah, break a non-magical weapon gifted to you by someone else. Okay, so let's skip right down to the one that you wanted to do. Which one?
Secret Door on 91. It's on the page. Yeah, Secret Door. The next door you encounter opens to a random place you've never been, reverting back to normal once shut. The ritual is just my favorite thing because you have to fucking consume a door. Like, your character just has to fucking eat a door.
You know what this reminds me of a lot? Like, all of these rituals kind of remind me of a little bit because they're so random. Have you ever watched Darker Than Black?
Yes.
The anime?
Oh, I love Darker Than Black. Oh my gosh, yes.
So in Darker Than Black, they all get powers, but they all have this cost they have to do, and they're most random as fuck. Some people's are terrible. like awful. Like some people have to like break their finger. Someone literally de-ages into nothingness.
Yeah.
But the one lady literally has to chug a beer, and she's like, "This is fucking great. I love Guinness." You know, the one dude literally has to boil and eat a dozen hard-boiled eggs every time he uses the power.
One guy has to eat a cigarette or eat like a pack of cigarettes.
The lady has to eat cigarette butts. Yeah. The one that like killed her kid, or the kid choked on a cigarette butt or something. So like, yeah, that was what this kind of reminds me of a little bit. Like there's a cost and it could be random as fuck, like eating a fucking door. Yeah. There's a lot of we get this, right? It's just basically just a spell book, some cool art. And then there's techniques. We can just go over one or two of the techniques because they are different, except that they feel the same. I don't really understand the difference between techniques.
I don't understand the difference either.
Because they feel like, I don't know, they feel like the same. There's Bind Magic. Target a creature you see. They cannot perform spells or techniques for 10 rem or 3 tick. Okay, we must have missed something. Rem and tick?
Turns in conflict. Real-time minutes and turns in conflict.
That's the difference between the spells in these two is that. So enhanced version costs 3 guts plus focus. The effects last 15 rem or 5 tick, and the ritual is burn a page from someone else's book of spells or technique. Oh shit. So all right, we don't need to go through all of these. We understand that. Is chapter 4 it, and then chapter 5 heads to the appendices? Oh, wow. Saving Grace. Target an ally you see. Any skill check, spell, or technique targeting them targets you instead for 15 rem or 5 tick. Enhanced version targets all allies, and the ritual is witness a creature's death.
Wait, repeat the last one? What was the last one you were reading? Was witness a creature's death.
Witness a creature's death. There's some dark shit in here. There's these little gems of darkness in this whimsy world.
Yeah. Doom Paws, you have to watch an ally die.
Yeah. Watch an ally die. Jeez, yeah. So chapter 5, we are not going to go over the guide toolkit, and we've already said we're already this is one of the longer streams you've done. We're not going to get to the appendices. Read those. The examples are really good. I feel like we did parse out how this all works, and I don't feel lost on it. You know, versus like, you know, we've talked about other games where, you know, we think we understand the rules, but we're not sure. I feel like I'm sure I know how this works. Whether I'm a super huge fan of it or not is another.
The rules set doesn't make sense to me.
Regardless, I don't hate it. I think it's just a very different kind of game. Let's head to the scores and let's chat it out in there. So when we get to our game review, again, for those that are just seeing this is a new window. You're welcome. It's much cooler and cleaner than the last one. We talk about these 5 categories of scores, right? Art and style, layout and function, rule set and crunch, originality, and price. Go check out our Instagram, the.weekly.scroll. I did a whole post with basically a fucking PowerPoint presentation of how we score each of these. And one of the things I want to start doing in my head is I start in my head with a 5.
Right.
And then I will add things to it versus being like, this feels like an 8. No. Art and style, I'm going to go, it's a 5 is baseline. Is it better than a 5?
Right.
Yes. Why? And is there more and more and more to it? Right. So in my head, art and style, it depends on how we're going to rate this. Is the art great? Yes. Right. Is the style,
is the art, is setting appropriate? Does it send a big thing about art is like, does it convey the vibe of what we're looking at? And you know what? This does not.
It does not. So, but the art is gorgeous.
It is.
And so we're saying to me that's a 6 because the art is fucking amazing.
Right.
Okay. I'm saying that there's a fuck ton of it. And you can't just look at the, like, for me, for the art, you can't just look at these like actual like pictures of people and stuff. When you look at some of the pages where the pages themselves are even just like big swaths of color,
right,
you know, and stuff, where the way that the page is laid out, like, I think the color in and of itself is
aspect.
Also art. Yeah. So like when we look at the let's page down to where is the one that literally is just like So like even this, when it's got this, right? So there's a big piece of art in the back, but even the way that they use the font.
Wait, who are you showing?
Like,
because none of us can see what you're looking at because we have a different screen up right now.
Oh yeah. Like
what
this.
Page?
Like even if the background didn't have this piece of art in the back, I'm saying the way that the fonts are used, the styles of different fonts, the color that add to it, to me, that all it's a little layout, but it's art and style too. It's the style of
it
how
is
it's all,
style.
yeah.
Yes, I super agree.
So stylistically, I think it's really consistent throughout the entire thing, which is a big important part.
I do too.
So we're talking a minimum of 7 to me right now.
Right.
And what else are we looking for? So the other problem too, though, is, I mean, the art again is gorgeous. To me, it bumps to an 8, but I do think the fact that it very rarely does it convey the vibe of doom apocalypse, it drops it back down to a 7 for me.
Yeah, I think. Do you think it's still better than Troika? Because Troika got a 7 for art and style.
I mean, so the problem is, again, when we look at art and style as a whole thing, individually, do I think the art pieces are better? I think a lot of them are, but did Troika's art more accurately give me the vibe of Troika? Yes.
And I think this is a 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me open this up. So,
which is still a good score, you know?
It's a great score. The art is awesome. I just wish it was a little bit less like kind of non sequitur. You know what I mean? Like there's pieces where like the cat with the camera. What is it? Oh, I mean, realistically, like what does that have to do with anything? You know, there's probably like 5 or 6 pieces in here where I'm like, this is fucking cool as shit. And this makes me feel doom. And then there's like 20 pieces in here where I'm like, I don't understand why this is on here. You know what I mean? So layout and function. So layout wise, 5 to start, 6 immediately, because like even if you just look at like this page here, this is the way a lot of things are. We've talked about how you don't clutter. You give the information that you need without like boxes on like double columns with a bunch of other shit out of the way. Like is each page very easily laid out so that you can absorb the information page by page really, really well?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there a consistency to the layout all the way through the entire book?
Yes.
Absolutely. Is it fucking hyperlinked?
Partially, yeah.
Yeah, I would. So here's the thing. I would say that this is in how most people hyperlink a document. I would say it's almost completely hyperlinked, and that Troika spoils, and that's why it gets a 10 on like the links back to the index and stuff like that. I mean, maybe if we were doing half points, I would say since it says chapter 5 here, I wish you could click to go to chapter 5 there. But I could also just go back to the beginning and click chapter 5. So I'm not necessarily going to take a ton of points off for that. In context of Troika, it's a 10.
Right.
Troika is, not this. But I think outside of Troika, this is probably the best laid out book that we have seen, in my opinion.
There are a couple of layout. Yeah. I guess layout wise, there's a couple of things I was reading that I was like, I wish this was in a different section. Or there were a couple of things that were like, it seemed like they were a little redundant, but I still think this is probably like an 8.
Yeah, I don't mind some of the redundancies. There were things that explain it multiple times, but I feel like it's because that rule was applicable in both those situations.
That's very, very fair. So
yeah. Is there any game that we've even given a 9 to in layout?
I have all the scores up right here, so let me look. Given layout. No.
We've given 8 games that we've given an 8. Who did we give an 8 to?
Into the Odd and Necronautilus both got an 8.
I feel like this is better than those. No, I feel like it's probably an 8 then. I mean,
it's probably an 8.
I kind of almost want to give it a 9 though, because I mean it is laid out extremely well.
Neither of those books were hyperlinked.
That's my
that we
thing.
gave an 8 to.
I think this reminds me layout wise of Into the Odd, and how clean it is and everything, but it's hyperlinked. You have to give a point for that. Like it's literally like one of my biggest things. I almost want to give this a 9.
What's your final call? Well, I'm good with 8 or a 9. I think either one would be fair.
I like 9. I haven't seen, outside of Troika, I don't think I've seen a book as well laid out as this. I feel like the information, not only is it really easy, in my opinion, to not necessarily easy to parse the information itself, but is the information there when you need it?
Yes.
And is the not only not only that, it has a table of contents and an index in the back, like a glossary style index, which is the reason we were able to find
9.
heights.
Yeah, 9. Yeah. It's 9.
I'm totally good with the height. Okay, so here's an interesting one, and this is always going to be an interesting one. So rules. So let's talk about this again for what rule set and crunch are, right? And when you actually bring up what we said rule set and crunch are, rule set is the actual rules, and crunch is the are the rules appropriate for what you want to do. And then originality is where we talk about like how original the rule set is comparatively and stuff like that, because originality can be in mechanics or lore. So we're not talking about the originality of the rules. I mean, partially we are, because it's the rule set, but don't forget that's also going to come up again. So again, it's hard to judge this objectively versus subjectively, so we can just find a happy medium. First of all, this is not a rules light game. One of the first things that keep saying this is rules light. It's not.
It is not.
It's not. This to me is rules medium, which makes 5th edition rules heavy to me. You know what I mean? Okay. I've always said we said that 5e was rules medium, but it's actually medium heavy. This to me is a solid
true medium.
A rules true medium. Yeah.
I think we're talking about the rule set in the crunch, and we said this a bunch, and you said this a bunch. The rules reinforce the gameplay a lot, like a lot.
A lot. Add a point for that, you know. And even though we're going to talk about the originality and stuff like that in the next one, we do have to talk about it a little bit in the rule set and the way the rules.
It's a unique rule set, and it was really easy to understand. You know, like we really understood it.
So I will say it could be worded slightly differently, so it'd be a little bit easier to understand. It is a little bit clinical. But once you parse through it, you're like, okay, no, I totally get this. What was the other part of rule set? Oh yeah, like it brings something that you haven't seen before. I really wouldn't just pull up that Instagram post and really break down like what we said each one individually means. So when we do that, when we actually look at, you know, what we specifically said rule set and crunch are, it says rule set is scored by the quality of an original rule set, and original rule sets should bring something unique to the gameplay. Fucking does like crazy. Like,
yeah, it really does.
There's a bunch of things that aren't in here. And then crunch is a measure of how well the rule set is utilized and if the quantity of the rules is appropriate. So the quality, so we're at a 5. So the quality of this rule set, in my opinion, I think deserves a point. I think the uniqueness of it deserves a point. I think how well it's utilized deserves a point, because again, it reinforces itself constantly. So we're at an 8 right now. But I think it definitely loses a point for calling itself rules light, because it's definitely not. So for me, I'm sitting at around a 7 for this.
I'm good with a 7 for this one.
Yeah, I'm good with a 7 for this too. It feels right. And I like that. I don't know how you feel about this. Do you like the whole like start at a 5 and do plus minuses kind of thing?
I do.
Versus just like I kind of feel it. Yeah. So originality. Being original is defined as not being derived from something else, fresh and unusual, something with a marked departure from previous practice. Originality in TTRPGs can be scored in either mechanic, setting, lore, or both. Questions we ask when rating this are, can you think of another game that has blank, or have you seen blank done in this way? So we can't really talk about lore outside of like some roll tables and stuff like that, because this game is really like make it your own, make your own setting.
Yes. Yeah. And that's great. And I'm good with that.
Yeah, because I don't think that a setting would fit this. It's literally designed to be whatever you want the apocalypse to be. But it does give you a whole chapter of tools on how to make that done really well. And they do that really well.
Yeah, and the whole Doom clock is so original.
So smart.
You know?
So smart. Well, so it is derivative of the actual quote unquote doomsday clock, but there's a whole explanation on
Yeah, but used in a tabletop game, the way it's used.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly smart and original. I don't disagree with that at all. I will and rules wise, I mean, we just talked about it. There's a lot of rules in here that are not in other games, like the bond squares, whether we're a huge fan of those or not. Really original, and again, really reinforces the gameplay, which is teamwork.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the initiative order, whether I'm super into that or not, with the whole like cinematic scene aspect of it, super original.
Yeah, I guess I've never heard of anything like that at all. So
the only thing that I've seen similar is, like I said, Shadow of the Demon Lord has kind of a concept of just like there's no.
Oh, that's right. But I haven't finished reading that, so.
But it's not even the way that he says it in here. It's just a little bit of the way that it goes in like in turns, where it's like this specific kind of turn goes first, good guy bad, then this specific kind of turn goes first, good guy bad. And that just scratches the surface of the initiative order, where it's literally like, as a group, let's craft our turns together so we can create the best possible outcome, and then basically act out or explain this scene round by round, and then get a narrative read of it.
I could see that turning out really cool and being a lot of fun.
Really,
this might get a really high originality score from us.
Again,
frankly.
my only knock on it, realistically, is how much time I think that's really going to take on a ticking clock. But that's a rule situation. That's not an originality.
The rules. It's not originality. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I mean, I don't think this is a 10. Because
I think it's a 9.
I think it's a 9 easy. Yeah. What did we give it 10 to? It's Necronautilus, right?
Necronautilus. Yeah.
So to me, Necronautilus is more original to this, because you're literally like using the concept of like fucking words.
That's the whole other thing.
I mean, it's a whole other thing. Necronautilus is an easy 10 because it literally like just both.
Yeah, well, compare it to anything. You can't. You know,
it breaks, but then also like massages your mind at the same time. It's like a fucking. It's like a Sour Patch Kid for your brain. That's what Necronautilus is to me. To me, I'm happy with this as a 9 though.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so price. We look at a bunch of different things for price. So you can we look up how much this book actually costs right now? Exalted Funeral.
I think it's $50 for the hardback.
Yeah. That's what it is, and $35 for the softback, which is average, right? We've looked at $35 for a softback and a PDF of a 170-page book. That's about average.
It's average.
Yeah. But
there's not any extra stuff with it, or
there's a fuckload of extra stuff. If you go to the website, the amount of free content that they have for this is crazy. So when you go to the website, I'll kick back to this page right here. First of all, you know that you get the resources. You get the free character sheets, right? Quick start rules, which you've already said is great to have. Yeah. Online character sheet. Okay. Printed character sheets. It's in Roll20. So if you want to get the Roll20 module for it, it's built in there with their character sheets. Oh, very cool. Yep. There is literally a Discord bot. So you could actually in Discord play this whole game. Doom Quest, generate random yet compelling story prompts compatible with Arc or any adventure. So literally an Omen maker.
Oh.
And a third-party license.
Wow, there's a lot on the website. Exalted Funeral just has the book, so.
Yeah. But I mean, this is the Arc website. Yeah. And that's not even it yet. I think there's still more stuff coming from. I'm not sure if that's it or not. But to me, that's a lot. I mean, obviously you would pay for the Roll20 module, but like all the rest of this is completely free. Like, to me, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even we've already said, like, love a fucking game with quick start rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to have the character sheets, but to have like the online and the print ones options, yeah. I mean, the Discord bot, the Doom generator, to me, I mean,
dude, yeah, shout out the Discord bot. That's a really great little like free thing that is super usable.
Yeah, I was thinking about adding it in just to play with it a little bit, but it says it's a seamless way to play Arc right in your server, make skill checks, track the Doomsday Clock, and import your character sheet from Google Sheets or Roll20 directly into your Discord server. Yeah. Super fucking cool.
Yeah.
So, Yeah. So some solid resources, and even just the Doom Quest generator, like an Omen generator, is so fucking cool. So, and again, we're just repeating ourselves again. A third-party license, so big, so huge, because you know what that's going to get you? More content. You know, more and availability of content is something we talk about a lot in price. So
yeah, it is really nice that it's one of those games that has moved towards like, make some third-party content for this shit.
Make shit. Show me what you can get from this shit. Yeah, I really, really like it a lot. I don't know what you would really do a lot. More spells, different character options, maybe write adventures, list of omens, create like a little micro setting, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I mean, price-wise, again, the book is average cost, so that's a 5. But then you get quick start rules and character sheets, which I think gives a point to it, because those should be part of a game, but some don't.
Yeah.
But quick start rules and online and print character sheets are great. Okay.
I agree.
Roll 20 module, like ready to run, ready to go. Like,
that's a point.
That's a point. I mean, whether you like Roll20 or not, it'd be cool if they also had Foundry, maybe eventually. But to be able to import your character sheets directly in, and then the Discord bot that lets you import that sheet into your server, I think that's
pretty awesome.
Yeah. On top of that, you have an online generator, a free online generator, and a third-party license. I mean, it's hard not to give that 4 points. It's hard not to give this a 9. Realistically, it's hard not to
give a 9 on price.
I don't know if we ever give a 9. I know we gave 2 10s, but Cascaland is literally free. Like...
yeah, it literally doesn't cost anything.
Literally free. And Merkborg gives you so much content that it would be insane not to give it to it. And the book's not that expensive.
Yeah, I think this is a 9 for price.
Yeah. My only thought is, does this kind of bonus content really raise an averagely priced book? $50, and that's $50 for not even the special edition of the hardback. Does the online generator... Roll20, the Discord bot, character sheet and stuff, does that really get it all the way up to a 9? You're almost doubling the score.
No, that's fair. So what are you thinking?
I'm happy with an 8. I'm happy with an 8.
I'm happy with an 8. I think that's fair.
Yeah, because I do think there's a lot of usability in the resources they give you. It's not just a bunch of random shit. We're like,
I agree.
You gave me a bunch of stuff, but it's not like I'm really going to use that a lot, you know?
Yeah, I guess thanks for all this. I guess you know,
this might beat Into the Odd, dude. And what's funny is like we don't even know if we're ever gonna play this or that we're gonna enjoy it, but it's just so interesting.
Oh, I might actually play this with my little side group. You know,
you should. You can be the test group for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Know? So what did you get total for that?
For what?
Or did you add that up?
Oh, I can add it up right now. No, I was not adding it up.
I just want to make sure that my math's not wrong.
I wasn't ready. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I did it twice. I think this is 1 point below Into the Odd.
40?
It's a 40. Yeah.
It's a 40.
I think Into the Odd's a 41, isn't it?
42? 41. I don't know. But I mean, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so that's Arc. We'll post, what I want to start doing too is posting, a breakdown today or tomorrow, or at least a little preview or recap of the Kickstart the Podcast section that we go over. So like every day after the podcast, you'll get, we can list the ones that we actually talked about. We need to catch up on dropping the scores. So I'm going to try to drop those scores a little quicker, so that because we have like 6 games that we want to do. I also want the Instagram to look cool. So we'll see how it comes out. We'll announce when the next podcast episode is available on podcast and on our YouTube and our Instagram posts. Basically, the Instagram is going to be a lot, and maybe I'll start fucking around with Twitter. We'll see. We don't have an official Twitter for the Weekly Scroll. We do have the Adventure Archive. But yeah, so follow the Instagram, especially the.weekly.scroll, because that's where you're going to get a lot of the content that we talk about. Yeah, my goal is to try to post a bunch of times a week. Preview what's coming up the next week. Give you the breakdown of what we did this week, stuff like that. What do you want to do next week? And then we can say our real goodbye and get out of here.
Next week is Christmas.
Oh, what do you want to do the next time we get together?
I don't know yet. Do you?
Do we want to try to announce it, or do we really want to sit down and talk about it? Because it really depends on what kind of episode we want to do next. We can do a bunch of little games.
Let's sit down and talk about it. You okay?
Yeah, I gotta. My phone is not on silent, which in 2021 is very weird for I think most people. So yeah.
Listen, y'all, I think we're gonna discuss it and we'll announce on the Instagram what we're gonna work on for our next episode.
Exactly.
Because we have a couple ideas.
Yeah, or hop into our Discord. We'll post it in there. So yeah, it's pretty late. It's almost 11:40. So we're gonna get moving. If you are listening in podcast land on whatever preferred podcast you are on, if there's the ability to rate us, we would really appreciate the highest rating.
We'd love
possible.
you.
Yeah, for our content, which we hope is not too terrible. Again, we're a bunch of fucking assholes. A lot of times, as you can see by the score we give this game, when we're critical of the games, because we're kind of being like devil's advocate-y a little bit. It's kind of like, let's pick this apart, but then still really enjoy it. So we hope you like that. Check us out at theadventurearchive.net, where you see a lot of the streams here on the Adventure Archive. We do play D&D, we play Merkborg a bunch, we play a lot of different stuff. And then the podcast is every week. So you see breakdowns of all the streams that we do. If you follow on the.adventure.archive, that is the Instagram for that. And then you can check out our YouTube at youtube.com or whatever /theadventurearchive. And you can actually watch all of the games we play, plus the VODs for these streams right here. So however you want to watch
stare
us,
at our faces.
Yeah. However you want to enjoy our content, whether it's on the podcast or not, we are the Weekly Scroll or the Adventure Archive. Thank you so much for checking out this game with us today. Thank you for being here. And check us out on Instagram and Discord to find out what we're going to be doing the week after Christmas. So
we love y'all.
Have a wonderful day. Yeah. And Hunter, wonderful as always. I will see you.
Great time. Good long episode.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk a lot before 2 weeks is up, but I'll see you.
Us? Yeah. See you, man.
It's a bit.
Farewell, podcast land.
Bye, everybody.